Hey, everybody. Hope you're all well. Probably a weird time to go live, but I've just got back from El Salvador, so I'm in the UK time zone, headed home in a couple of days, back to the island. And It's actually my 14th year anniversary today. So I released a couple of tweets out there for Bliss. But she's asleep right now, and I'm really jet lagged. And I joined a couple of spaces recently, and I thought it'd be cool to just host my own one and see what questions people have, because they were pretty intense the last few that I've attended. I'm just thought I'd come on here because I just can't sleep for shit. And so sorry for the Brits and Europeans. You may not be awake now unless you're a late one. We've probably got a lot of the American audience here. Really just an AMA. If you'd like to ask a question, put your hand up right now, request. We can take this conversation wherever you want to go. Lots of really exciting stuff coming from El Salvador. We're at BnkToTheFuture. We've pretty much been rebuilding for the last year and applying for about 5 different licenses, and a lot of those is all coming through. So lots of exciting stuff. On the Celsius side, there's lots of interesting topics to discuss there. I think I've really been putting some thoughts into what payment in kind means and the shit show that can actually create. So I'm sure behind the scenes, the Celsius team are trying to figure out. Also, I'm under a bunch of NDAs, so when I can't comment on something, I can talk about anything that's public information, and just general ideas. But some of the things that's non-public information, I might view a no comment on certain things. Or we could just talk about the market, economics, Bitcoin. When I get home next week, I'm going to hit my challenge again. For those of you that followed me a while, that knew me before all this Celsius stuff blew up, I used to give a quick update on what's happening in the world on my YouTube channel every morning. And it was a public commitment to keep me accountable to hit the gym every day. And I was on a real good roll, but it all went to shit. So I'm trying to pick that one up again next week, get in some routine, some normality. In the meantime, discovered these Twitter Spaces, which actually is an awesome way of having more of a two-way conversation. So, right, I've got a couple of requests here, so I'm going to bring a couple of people up. And as we said, there's no real agenda here. It's just ask me anything. Let's have some interesting conversations. So much has happened. I'm going to let 2 people in. So we have 2 speakers now. If you can hear me and you're a speaker, speak up.
Hi, Simon. Thanks for letting me up. And
Pleasure.
yeah, thanks for all your work and stuff. So a quick question for you regarding the bonds and citizenship. Is there any talk or any availability or just interest that they would even be willing to connect the citizenship, a dual citizenship aspect to the bonds, or has that even been brought up?
Yeah, let's. So the Bitcoin Volcano Bond. If I were to put a best guess, and I can say this, I reckon it's an early next year project. I know that they're giving signal that it's going to be towards the end of this year, but as you start to approach the end of the year, December's a bit of a write-off. Everyone starts thinking about Christmas, and so that really leaves 7 November. There's a bunch of reforms that I was suggesting around pension, securities, banking, and I'm just absolutely blown away with the way that government operates. An idea comes through, a meeting happens with the president. They then discuss. They set up all the meetings and who you need to speak to. And then literally they'll bring in the lawyers. The lawyers will start drafting things will get executed at the same time as the meeting, and then it hits over to Congress. And so it's just a really awesome process. So in terms of citizenship, I think they've got to figure out the whole special economic region thing with Bitcoin City. That's a big project. And so yeah, I see no reason why those things shouldn't happen, and they can be connected to investing a certain level. Yeah, we'll make sure that all those conversations are happening.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And then
Are you
I'm
considering
currently a
becoming a
part of.
citizen?
Yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen, and I love the aspect of having dual citizenships. So just kind of that multi-flag aspect. So
Yeah.
just would
Have
love
you
to,
got
especially with.
have you got like a pretty well rooted family, children and stuff, or are you kind of a free spirit?
I have I would say kind of like in the middle. Like my
Yeah.
wife, her family and stuff are here. We have one daughter, but it's she definitely is open to things. So it's not like an unreachable uh, goal kind of thing if we ever wanted to move somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, oh, really, really excited about what's happening in El Salvador. And I just think we just have this amazing opportunity to create a blueprint for the rest of the world. They're in a very unique position, so I don't think anyone's going to follow in a similar way anytime soon. But I think it's all about making a success story. And so many people are ready to criticize it. You know, to me, the the fact is, when you go there, every single person in that country has a Bitcoin wallet, and
Yeah.
70% of them never had a bank account. And so, yeah, they're not all using it; they don't fully understand it. But whenever I was there, I took it upon myself to, if they accepted Bitcoin as payment, which most of them were willing to do. Then I gave them a lesson in business risk management and Bitcoin, and how to put
Mm.
together a 10-year financial plan. And people are just really, really open to this whole concept of, right, how do I move from living month to month spending to saving, with an aspiration of one day investing. And then once I've invested, they want to make a big difference in their country. So and people are excited, and it's really cool. I know there's been a lot of, since the launch of the bond, there's been a lot of human rights stuff. I think it's a tricky one. It's a really tricky one. When you speak to people in El Salvador, 5 to 6 years ago, they were pretty much petrified to step outside their house. They would never drive around at night. It'd be a regular occurrence to get jacked by gangs. And so, was taken this approach of chucking them all in prison. Now, obviously, people that would have been forced to have tattoos are no longer part of those gangs. You can imagine there's a bunch of collateral damage there that is pretty unjust. But the fact of the matter is, if you speak to anyone on the street, they're ultra excited about their country. They feel safe for the first time. I didn't encounter one act of feeling fearful for my safety. But I can't say that I experienced the whole country. I was just in business mode, back to back to back. Um, but it's amazing to experience speaking to so many people that are just really grateful for that opportunity. And you got to remember that these gangs were extorting people, with pupusa and coffee stands, for up to like 30% of all their revenue. So if those gangs are no longer there extorting, that's a lot of revenue that these people are used to, that they can now, if they can build a financial education, can put into saving. Just take the money that they used to give to gangs, put that in Bitcoin, and develop out, a strategy. Because one of the things that was really important to me is, like, when I lived in Hong Kong, it used to break my heart when I used to see these things called coffin homes. And these coffin homes were literally, as it sounds, people that were in a box. A house would be separated into like 50 boxes where these people would have to climb up. and this box would be their house, and they were like the original Hong Kong residents prior to this ginormous real estate bubble and tax evasion mechanism from those that built wealth in China. Create this Hong Kong is one of the most expensive places in the world to live, and real estate just completely blew up and made this next class of mega billionaires from the growth of China, which is an incredible story. But the people that lived there that didn't get on the real estate ladder, they got left behind, and they're now living in these coffin boxes or moving out to like these little islands called Poland and stuff like that. And they are in a real nasty place. But imagine if in El Salvador at this bear market stage, that there was a mechanism, pension reform, where everybody ended up with a bunch of Bitcoin or a fraction of Bitcoin, and they were stacking Sats. And then the success story leading into the next bull market could uplift a nation with it, rather than doing the Hong Kong thing where you end up in coffin homes. So I just think it's just an incredibly exciting thing to be involved in, and it just really allows our community to make sure that this is a success story, so that others can
Yeah, and
follow. Yeah,
it's great to see just the fact that just by clearing the gangs, like these people, majority of them got a 40 to 50% raise just by being able to keep the labor, the rewards of their own labor, and that's what's really neat to see through there. Let alone just the aspect of having the sense of security and being able to feel safe to go out and be a part of the community at different times. And so it's really encouraging to see that is,
yeah,
I kind of think that the bear market is going to be a blessing for El Salvador in a way, because you're not going to have in a bear market is when these good companies are really the ones who really dig down deep, good work. They're not in there for the quick buck. They're really trying to just build out things properly and correctly and implement in efficient manners. And I think that that's really going to benefit El Salvador.
yeah. I agree. I think if it went straight into a bull market, everyone would have been reckless. Everyone would have got wrecked. And everyone would have had a bad experience. Now they have had that bad experience, but
Yeah.
those that survive, Bitcoin adoption is a 4 to 5 year cycle. If you get through a 4 to 5 year cycle, you pretty much figure out what's going on. And so they're in their first year cycle. It's been a pretty rough time, but the propaganda is a joke. They said that the Bitcoin Volcano Bond didn't have enough financial support. That's BS. It was, the laws needed to change, priorities came along, and we had about 300 million of soft commits at BnkToTheFuture, without even going too far. And the Bitfinex team, when we had to do a tether recovery plan, they raised $1 billion in 2 weeks. So that's BS. And then the propaganda of this is going to send the country bankrupt. Will they become the first country? That they got $23 billion of debt on a $30 billion economy. With last year they grew at about 10%. That's a pretty tricky situation for the sovereign debt side. They're investing big in infrastructure, but to say that because they bought 100 million of Bitcoin, which is now worth about 50 to 40 million, that's the reason that they might default on their sovereign debt, which are not. We're working on a restructuring plan for that, and the government are doing a government buyback. It is all propaganda, IMF BS. And when when we were there, like last time in January, this often I doubt myself, thinking that some of these things we believe in, like quite a bit conspiratorial. No, they're not. Like the IMF is just ruthless out there.
Yeah.
So to give people a third choice, you could take the China loan, you could take the IMF loan, or you can do a fraction of this on a Bitcoin strategy, and let's just show the world how it can work.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'm a part of the El Zonte Capital, like funding around on that. And same with like Jeff Booth's, Ego Death Capital. And I'm really interested in being able to invest in some of the companies that are doing the build out in Bitcoin City. Is there going to be some opportunities coming up through Bank to the Future that you're going to be offering? I'm a member with Bank to the Future, but just curious of what individual investments are going to be available for that.
Yeah, I'll take this as the last question. Yeah, we're basically, as I said, we've got 5 license applications that we've been making, and we're really excited about making some additional announcements. We had to, for regulatory reasons, rebuild a lot of our infrastructure, and BFID to meet like travel rules and all these new rules that have come out. And we decided to take that time to get the additional licenses so we could do a more of a retail launch rather than the high net worth investor launch. So watch your space. I don't like second guessing regulators, but I'm pretty sure we're at the final mile, and I'm hoping that we can start launches again in September. We've got a lot lined up. So
Gotcha.
cool.
All
All
right. Well,
right,
I
I'm
appreciate
gonna
it, Simon.
let someone else jump in.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
had a quick question. I don't know if I came in late, but could you kind of give a quick, like, I know your time is very valuable. I've always respected what you say, and I listen to you. Could you give us kind of a little bit of an idea of where we stand? Because I put my life savings into, I'm not going to use a swear word, Celsius, and I'm
Mhm.
just kind of lost. I don't know where we are, because I know that you've been involved with so many other things as well, and I've been curious if you'd mind giving us an update on that.
Yeah, sure. So let's switch gears to Celsius. So I'm aware that when I'm giving a space on my Twitter profile, we've got a vast audience of different types of people. So in summary, Celsius is in Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They suspended withdrawals on June the 12th, and then they had to move around a bunch of money while the lawyers tried to persuade the board and Alex to that they're insolvent. They have to move to bankruptcy, which was met with big resistance, firing of lawyers, and then finally Kirkland, which is the top bankruptcy lawyers pretty much in the world, um, are now in that process. So Celsius and the existing board have 120 days exclusivity on restructuring and recovery plans. And from my perspective, I was on a space yesterday where Alex Mazinski was listening in, and I made it known that I think he should be stepping aside. He's costing the company approximately 35 million to 45 million in cash burn over each month. So they announced that by October, they've run out of their reserve cash, which means that they need to raise additional funding. Now, the bit that I hate about that is that they can take on what's known as DIP finance. And DIP finance means that they essentially borrow money. And when they borrow that money, it takes preference creditors. I'm sorry if this is a bunch of jargon, just interrupt if it's not. But creditors are essentially everybody they owe money to. So that's me and you and everyone that had deposits on there. They announced a coin report that shows that they had about a $3 billion hole in terms of being able to repay people. So they're $3 billion crypto short at the moment, which means that if we entered into a bull market, their debt in terms of exponentially worse. But what they're trying to do is use Bitcoin mining as a recovery plan, and buy as much time to invest in the mining operation. We're waiting. There's going to be a hearing on the 1st of September, which, depending on which time zone you're in, is tomorrow. That would be the next hearing. I think they're just get as much time, go for a 120-day extension. I think Alex Mazinski will refuse to step it. And so I think there's going to have to be motions filed to make the US trustee take over. The unsecured creditor committee are essentially the ones that decide on what Celsius proposes. So Celsius has to put together their plan. They keep on extending that out, and once they put forward that plan, then others can try and propose different ones. And I think just like they had to force Alex to put it into Chapter 11, I think there's going to have to be a motion for the US trustee to take over. They've launched a formal investigation, which can take quite a lot of time, rather than the US trustee actually taking over. I still believe that the only way to recover from this is through equity. So I believe that most people will get about 50% of their coins back. But what I put out there the other day, that as always gets accused of being FUD from those that want the price of sell to go up, is a thought about what payment in kind means. Because you got to remember, they've got of the Bitcoin in terms of BTC, they only have about 8% of what they owe people. In terms of wrap Bitcoin, which is an ERC20 version of Bitcoin held in custody, they got about 30% of the Bitcoin, but they got about 80% of the ETH. So what does that mean? It can't mean to me, because in bankruptcy you have to have equality. Is equitable solutions have to be arisen. It can't be that if you've got Bitcoin you end up with a lot less, and if you've got Ethereum you end up with a lot more, and then you've got all these other coins as well. So how would you actually manage payment in kind? In order to do it as equality, you probably need to sell the tokens, rebuy it back, set a base currency. I'm sure that most people, someone like me would want that done in Bitcoin. But then at the same time, most of their funds are in ETH already. ETH is moving towards a merge, so there's a bunch of risk happening in ETH. Or you could just go for the safe option, which is a stable coin, and then buy back the tokens. And then you've got to rely upon Celsius and their management executing that. I don't trust them to do that in the right way. They've got mismanagement, and so that's kind of the situation we're in. I don't want them going out and forcing us to invest more in them so they can build out a mining operation. Because essentially, if they go out and raise more funding, that comes from what they could repay us. And I don't want them to be deciding what we should buy in. And you might as well have just put it in Chapter 7, given us the assets, and we can go buy our own Bitcoin. So it's a bit of a farce. It's a bit of a shambles. But here's what I think happens. There's going to be a 50% haircut, and I think the rest is made up with equity. And I think that there'll be, we would put forward, I can't talk to this one, but we're still putting forward a proposal that we think fixes many of the key issues, and allows people to have some of the whole plugs with shares in a company, could move to a public offering of either the mining operation, or different aspects of the business. We're going to be in this together for quite some time, and so plan your finances accordingly. So if you're in a position where you need those funds in order to meet your expenses, then everybody needs to put together another plan. I'm just being realistic. Sorry if that's bad news.
How long do you anticipate this taking?
No one's going to want to hear this, but I think we're going to be in this process to a potential recovery for 2 to 3 years. I don't anticipate the next payment coming out till at least the first payment until sometime next year. But it all depends. The earlier, from my perspective, that Alex Mazinski steps aside, and lets just becomes a supporter rather than the person pushing what I consider to be nuts plans. Then the longer this is going to go on for, and then you've got all the objections going to come through. It's not a Mount Gox 8 years, I don't think, but I think it is a 2 to 3 year process. But hopefully, if everything goes right and the right motions are filed, then people could be receiving early next year up to 50% of their funds. The big elephant in the room is the sell token. It creates so much complexity because there's no real good way of pricing it. And then if you're socializing the losses, then there's a group out there that are squeezing the price, which causes many complexities around the value of those tokens and how they get valued. it changes the socialization. And then if everyone's got to then take a loss as a result of the sell token, and what is that worth? And then everyone's being distributed some of those sell tokens, and then as soon as they get withdrawal, it's like a race to sell. There's so much complexity because of that. So it's a real problem, and everyone's trying to figure out a way of using that to plug the hole.
I appreciate everything you do, man. Thank you for being there, and I trust your judgment implicitly. Thank you.
No worries. My commitment is I am deeply hurt and deeply motivated to do whatever I can, firstly for my own financial position, but quite frankly, people like yourself, that I've just heard so many stories that have just hit such a raw nerve for me. And I'll be there till the end, doing whatever I can to try and push as much upside to this as we possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Hi, Simon. I was hoping I could jump in. I have a bit of a business as usual question about Bank to the Future.
Sure.
If we have this plan goes forwards where there's equity distributed to the people who made losses in Celsius, does that then come over to Bank to the Future? And how does that work? If I was to get equity, how do I ever realize that?
So I can't go too much into specifics, but in general, are you a shareholder of Bank to the Future?
Not currently. I was going to come in on the B round for Celsius, but obviously that got blocked. So I guess the question is, how I understand if it goes to an IPO and there's it's listed on a public exchange, but
it's pretty fluid. It's pretty fluid right now. So Bank to the Future has a secondary market which has been in stealth mode at the moment. The reason is because we wanted those additional licenses before we started pushing it. So, and our secondary market. So as at Bank to the Future, we have retirement plans, and as people contribute to those retirement plans, a percentage of it is put into equity and crypto companies. So we have a constant flow of people that want to build out longer term, very long term approaches of getting exposure to this market. And so as we build that out and we launch our secondary market further, there's always people that missed funding rounds that want it in, say, their retirement plan or just in general on Bank to the Future. So we over the years we'll have this constant flow of liquidity on our secondary market. The way we built our secondary market is we took iteration how the nature of private equity. So when you own shares in private companies, you normally have to hold them for several years until the company goes public or is acquired by another company. And so what we wanted to do is create a market where people could try and get some liquidity. But the reason companies and the reason why security tokens have been not so popular so far is because most people are just not long-term in nature, and normally private equity VCs invest for 7 to 10 years. And so in that 7 to 10 years, people's life circumstance change and they sell for no other reason than they need cash flow. So the secondary market has a price floor, meaning that you can't sell your shares below the price of the last funding round. So it doesn't screw up the valuation of the company like the security token markets do. So that locks in a price, and if someone wants exposure, they have to pay that price. And then every time they reach a new valuation event in the future, the price floor increases to that price. And so if you take, for example, a company like Kraken, we invested at a 20 million valuation. They then raised finance a few years later at a 4 billion valuation. So the price floor goes up. And now they did some secondary trades at a 10 billion valuation. And now they're looking to IPO at some point at a 20 billion valuation. So if you hold all the way through over that 5-year period, I think it was, from when we made maybe 5 to 7 years, then you get the 20 million to 20 billion upside. If you sold in between, then it depends upon liquidity and the price of the last funding round. So that's the secondary market. Now we're at a phase right now where that if we merge these companies together and execute the plan in the way that we would like to execute it, the IPO stage, and we would look to execute that within a 2-year period, just due to the nature of where we are as a business now, and the opportunity of this. So I can't give you the full details. What I can say is that these details will be fully disclosed, and if we execute, we're going to be pretty much like a public company in terms of our disclosures. But I've said this a few times, but we're at the midst of getting regulatory approvals in order to make several announcements that will make a lot more possible. So I'll keep doing these spaces to try and update you on these things as they progress.
Thanks, Simon. Just for a bit of clarity, does that mean that in the example of where you invested in Kraken and you've held the whole way through, once it IPOs, does Bank to the Future remain the custodian of those shares unless the individual who bought them or the company that bought them inside Bank to the Future wishes to sell them? I know that they sold by Bank to the Future or the individual on the open market.
Yeah, so we can hold those and continue to hold those in custody, and then the private shares get swapped out for the public shares. And then if someone wants to, we can hold those in custody as title. And then if somebody wants to execute a sell order, then they can just push that order through. We did our first one with Coinbase, which was kind of our beta. It was a bit clunky, a bit slow. And now doing our second one with Robinhood. Then we've got Circle coming up and Ripple Labs. So by the time we go through this, we've got about 4 IPOs under our wings from our portfolio companies. And hopefully the processes will be a lot better. The last year we've invested a lot in our staff, our technology, and then we're just getting through those regulatory hurdles to be able to move into another scaling phase and get more liquidity to this.
Thank you for that. It sounds a lot like your classic super fund, but that's good to hear.
Cool.
Simon, I have a question regarding Celsius. How you doing?
Yeah.
You mentioned something about you expect the process to take 2 full years, more or less. Does that mean that a decision will be made then, or are we expecting to see some milestones achieved along the way? Like, for instance, could the judge say, I want custody funds or loan collateral back, let's say by X day, and then the rest of the earners continue with the process? Is it like that? Could it be partially?
Yeah, if you want to see a case study, so look at other Chapter 11 processes, and Thomas is the guy. I'm going to be doing a lot more spaces with Thomas. Of course, yeah, there will be milestones, but the problem is that with Celsius, you've got lots of competing agendas that have formed, for not malicious, just people looking out for their self-interest, and people have, there was so much bad that was done within this company that everyone feels that they have a more rightful claim over certain things, as you know. So you've got, people that had lending collateral believing that they should not be treated the way as people that were, receiving earning yield. And then you have those that accidentally end up in custody that realize that custody is meant to be their own asset. So you've got those groups. Then you've got people that could be clawed back and end up, that could end up recovering those that are existing creditors. So you've got all of these different competing things, and then how are the payments in kind done? So all of these things need to work themselves out. And if there is one that is resolved, then it may have an impact on the other. That's just why. But I do think there will be milestones. But you do have to work these things out until you can start giving money to people, because it affects the returns that other creditors will be getting. My belief, and again, I'm open to changing this as more information comes through, is I just believe that we've got to focus on an equitable solution. And I understand why everyone's going to launch their own, lawsuits and try and pursue their own groups and these special interest groups. But I think at the end of the day, we'll get a better result if we're all in this together. But it's game theory. There's prisoner's dilemma here, and people are in situations where what they do and what they say could be different. But I all of the things I try and do will be focused on everyone being treated as evenly as possible. And that's what I think we should fight for, because I think, I've seen the toxicity that can come from one group wanting one thing that then affects another group, and all these cell token stuff has caused like some crazy scenarios. So yeah, I think equality is the best way in this. So there will be milestones, but yeah, just be prepared for a long haul. And by 2 to 3 years, I don't mean, okay, in 3 years you'll receive your first option of a payout. I mean, I think you'll receive your first option of a payout earlier, and then maybe equity will be issued. And then, Bitfinex was 2 weeks, because we didn't take it into Chapter 11, because the company decided to be honest and disclose everything and move fast. And they just disclosed the whole rather than trying to hide the whole. And therefore it took a couple to figure out a plan, about 6 months to execute everything, and within 9 months everyone was whole. And then we've still got shareholders to this day, that have a company many times more valuable than what it was, and they paid out a lot of dividends. So when I say 3 years, I'm talking about, by that stage, maybe you would have been issued equity, and there would have been some kind of IPO or something, and hopefully we'll all be celebrating on the other side and discussing how we change financial history, and economic textbooks can be written about this new case study of bankruptcy proceedings. However, it's very, very painful right now, and I know that it's hard to think of light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm truly empathic for people that have really, really bad situations. I've been dealing with suicides and all sorts of stuff, which has just been emotionally soul destroying over the last few months. But I can only focus on solutions and tell you what I think is going to happen, so that people can be prepared for the worst, but also expect the best, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank
Hey,
you.
Simon, I'm going to jump in real quick. You mentioned prisoner's dilemma, toxicity. I was on the group yesterday, trying to, help you get the stage to be able to ask a logical question. The cell chat. Is there anything specific that depositors or those of us who have, 6-figure accounts, is there anything that we can do to sort of deprogram or kind of help to socialize the cell chat group, or the short squeezers? Is there anything we can do to sort of contribute to dialogue or support that camaraderie?
I don't know. Look, I don't know if I'm following the right approach by trying to come into their spaces and be a reasonable voice. It feels like the right thing to do. Maybe it's just a complete waste of my time and I shouldn't be doing it. That's what people keep telling me. But yeah, it's a fringe group. Don't be fooled into thinking that's the community. It's not. There's most of the community isn't on Twitter, or on these spaces. They're just people that have jobs and they're just busy and wondering what the hell's going on. And then you've got the people like yourself that want to engage in real solutions. And then you've got these fringe groups which are kind of following their activist movement, and I wish them all the best. I hope, but some of them are just engaging in things that I think is obstructive, and I try to show them that I'm a reasonable person, because there are a group of people that feel like I'm the enemy, and I'm ruining their game plan. And I don't know. I just try and chat to them. I don't know what others can do. I tend to think that let them be, and we just do what we do. Yeah, I don't really have a good answer for you there. Really, I'm not an expert strategist on these things. I'm just trying to support people and really engage with people. And where they're being unreasonable, try and help them see that, look, we're here just trying to work on, and the real people are the victims that have been duped into depositing more than they would have if they understood, because of just really bad practices.
Hey, Simon. How are you? My name is Joe. I own a finance company here in the United States, and I guess I'm part of one of those fringe groups. I'm one of the 5 people on this loan committee that kind of pseudo represents the loan group. And I was wondering if we could just rewind for a moment when you talked about the different groups. And I just want to say, the idea of equity, it's a noble cause, and I understand what you mean in a philosophical manner. But this as a businessman, this company is in bankruptcy, right? So there are different groups, right? I mean, no matter what we do and what plans come forward, there's going to be different attorneys that represent different groups, and there's a debt structure, right? That there's a debt structure in that company that has to be followed, and the attorneys go after these little angles, and that's the way it always goes, right, in bankruptcy. So that being said, we kind of represent the loan group, or our attorney represents the loan group, and I just want to know your thoughts on that. I don't hear you mention it that much, but there are factions within the Celsius community, and loans being one of them, where the evidence points to, and this is not just BS evidence, this is insiders that we spoke to and other evidence, points to that some of the portions of the company, lending to be exact, may in fact be solvent, as a standalone company, Celsius Lending LLC. So that brings us to the point of that business, right, could potentially be sold off in whole to another company, and the people with loans can go on their merry way, paying their principal, interest, and be out of this mess, right? So why wouldn't someone in that situation that would like that collateral back, does not want equity? Why wouldn't they choose to do that? So I just want to know your thoughts on the loan.
They should. And if I got to be careful about legal advice, and let me just make the disclaimers. None of this should be treated as financial, legal, tax, investment advice. Some of the things I say could lead you to lose money. So you've got to make your own decision and engage actual professionals that have accountability to the advice they give you. I don't have any accountability other than that. But I do believe everyone should join the relevant fringe groups to completely understand what's going on and decide if they can represent themselves in a better way. And I have no judgment over that. And each should be pursuing their, because if you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. Prisoner's dilemma. So everyone should be joining those fringe groups. We are really excited about being able to offer a solution for those that want to continue the service. That's one of the things we've been working on behind the scenes. So we I don't want to comment too much on it, but we would hope that we could have a solution there. Now, whether the collateral gets haircut or returns in full is really the legal question, and one of these things that are going to be resolved in this. Whatever comes through, everyone's going to push those things. And what I think we need to be is prepared for if-then scenarios. So if that happens, then here's what we do. And this is kind of the thing that people criticize me for, is I try to get ahead of things, and I try to create these if-then scenarios, so that when they come, we know what move we would make, and then people see that as like FUD or me trying to say something's going to happen. But I've always been doing these if-thens. So yeah, I don't know if that gives you answer, but there's going to be solutions. I think you should continue doing what you're doing.
Appreciate that, Simon. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you that are not involved in Celsius, I hope this is educational, but it's just really front of mind for a lot of people right now that have been hit by this thing. And it has actually been an amazing educational tool if we could look at one silver lining in this awful disaster. And it's interesting, actually, it was 15th of September 2008. We got married, Bliss and I got married this day 14 years ago. and we went on our honeymoon, and I returned on the 15th of September 2008 to the news that Lehman Brothers had filed for Chapter 11 protection in bankruptcy. And the rather than bail out Lehman Brothers, it ended up being sold part to Barclays Bank and Nomura Bank, and free market solutions were used. And then the Fed decided to lend some money to JP Morgan, not bail out Bear Stearns, and then JP Morgan bought Bear Stearns for pennies on the dollars, just like it did in 1907. And then that led to them designing the Federal Reserve System in Jekyll Island, and then in 1913 implementing the Federal Reserve Act. That went full circle in 2008 with the Lehman Brothers situation. And so I'm keen to support everyone. There's going to be so much education from this. I can't wait to get back to writing my new book, which is what I was doing before all this mess. And I was about 250,000 words in. So it's going to be a bit of a monster book. But it's following the money from 5,000 years of history to explain many of the war situations, inflation, and many of the cost of living crisis and various things that are happening, and how to combat them at the individual level, company level, and country level. So I just think it's really interesting that I've been all these numerological things that are popping up, and now we've got this the Lehman Brothers of crypto moment, as it were, and I think we're for free market solutions. And yeah, I just really, as a monetary geek, I find this a very interesting thought experiment. But at the same time, there's real humans behind all this stuff, so it's very painful and frustrating. And yeah, just trying to connect the dots with various projects that I'm working on to see if we can put together a great solution and write about it in the book about how we did it and how the market put together this free market solution, like we did in 2016 with Bitfinex. So anyway, sorry, a bit of a tangent. Next question.
I'll jump on here one more time. El Salvador, I was in South America for the last 3 months. Do you see the model that the
Simon,
government
if
is
I may,
deploying replicable to other countries?
Sorry, we've got two people speaking at once. So yeah, El Salvador, Central America. I believe that President Bukele has aspirations of, and this is speculation, but based upon some presentations that were publicly available, of doing a, I don't know whether you'd call it a European Union style Central American government, or whether you'd call it more like a United States, because most people speak a similar culture and language as opposed to a vastly different one in Europe. I think you could see something like that, but it doesn't really matter because the world is watching El Salvador, and if El Salvador proves that you can bring a nation out of poverty, and you can bring a nation into savings by allowing individuals to, have a wallet, learn how you use the dollar and Bitcoin in order to manage personal expenses, pensions, and then you have securities laws and banking reforms that puts together the structure for that. I think El Salvador, and one of the things we're going to be working on is building out the equivalent of Wall Street of Bitcoin. And I think we're hiring lots of people in El Salvador now. We've been out there interviewing, and it's really exciting. But I think everyone wants to watch. So we've got to launch these bonds. We've got a president that's put their finger up to the IMF. Every time we tried this in the past, we failed. We did it in UK. I gave the strategy to Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson ended up funding our competition, plagiarizing our brand. So I had some really reservations about that character before he became a shamed prime minister. And then we went to do it in Isle of Man, and then the Bank of England told them we got the government to do it. They were all up for it. And then the Bank of England said, we'll remove clearing to your banking system. So I gave them a stablecoin strategy, but it was a little bit early in the day because Tether had only just launched at this time, and we were launching colored coins on top of Bitcoin right back then. ETH was still in stealth mode. I think they just done their ICO. I can't remember the timing. And so it was too early. But we've got this president that literally said, they're building relations with China, so you obviously have to accept China money. There's the Belt and Road Initiative. There's no way around that today. But the IMF said, get rid of your Bitcoin policy and we'll lend you the money. And they said, no, we're not going to get rid of our Bitcoin policy. So they've committed to that. And the IMF have done all sorts of embarrassment campaigns. It's just a joke, as I said. They invested 100 million. It's worth 50 million. But relative to their 23 billion debt, it's just a drop in the pond. And they're saying, oh, that's going to send the country bankrupt. No, they've got to do a sovereign debt restructuring. And actually, you can buy El Salvador bonds for about 30 cents on the dollar right now. And I'm doing a really high risk trade. I don't recommend this to anyone, but I'm playing around with it in my normal pension of investing in normal sovereign debt and seeing if I can do a sovereign debt to Bitcoin bond swap at some stage. It's just interesting times. And I do think the world is going to watch, and I think it's going to take 3 to 4. You've got to go through the whole Bitcoin cycle. You've got to do the 4 to 5 year Bitcoin cycle and show the impact on finances that this had for the government, the companies, and the individuals. You got to let everyone have their embarrassment campaign in the bear market, just like we all have. Anyone who the cycles, everyone tells you you're an idiot in the bear market. I told you shouldn't have buy. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a currency just for drug dealers, and they've got to get through that, and then they've got to get through the sideways market, then they've got to get into the bull market and the innovation, and then get through those cycles, and then the whole world is going to FOMO in, which will probably lead to the next bear market, and then we just go through the next cycle. But I think we can create an industry of Bitcoin investment banking from this foundation, because the president he's read his Ray Dalio's, he's read his Safer Dina Moose's, he's read Bank to the Future, and this guy is he's a Bitcoiner, and that's all I can say.
Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Simon. I'll go ahead and jump in. And first off, in regards to your book and about 1907 and the Federal Reserve, history obviously doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. First, just want to give you credit for hosting the spaces. You've been in the fire. Appreciate this being recorded. I think you've faced more than others some level of Soviet show trials in your level of being questioned. So I appreciate it. Just going forward, I know Joe already hit on it, but do you see Celsius either as a restructured company or in a new company remaining as is? And the reason why I just ask is, we're talking the retail loans. If there's the ability for a solvent lending platform to bid on either individual loans or the whole retail order book, I think of a couple platforms. I especially think of Abra Global and the CEO, Bill, I think I'm pronouncing it, Barnhart. If you have any either relations or connections with him, if there's an interest from a platform such as Abra that does all of the same stuff as Celsius, but obviously, as we know, has a better risk management profile, if that's a potential option for retail users that are holding, as you know, I think you like to tweet, 23,000 loans. We're looking at 766 million in collateral with 411 million principal. And if we're just talking to equity or haircuts, and I look forward obviously to seeing your plan, but if we're talking haircuts on collateral, which is a liability on the balance sheet, how are we going to talk about haircutting principal, which is an asset on the balance sheet? Thanks again for hosting this space.
Yeah, awesome. Firstly, thanks for giving those stats, and we should talk a lot more. Full disclosure, I'm a shareholder in Abra. I try to disclose every company I'm a shareholder in. But yeah, I'm a shareholder in that company. We did have talks. As I've had talks with many others, I'm ultra confident we can come up with a solution. The likelihood of Celsius coming back as Celsius and Alex saving the day, I think is zero. It's just not going to happen. I don't think it's a brand that can be trusted, and I don't think it's a board that can be trusted ever again. They should disappear and support whoever the new team is in figuring out how to turn this mess into something good. I remember when Mount Gox went down, I think it was Brock Pierce just kept trying to get that brand back, and it was just a dead brand. It became a meme, and it became a pain for everybody, with extremely negative associations. And so, we've seen that. Bitfinex only recovered because they did everything right. They disclosed it, they faced it, and they had the opportunity, but it still took a long recovery process there. But yeah, I don't see Celsius. I know there are valuable assets, and those assets need to go into a new company with a new brand, with new management, with new licenses under a new risk model. And that's what we're working to be able to offer. And there are other people that might be able to offer that too. So I believe you will get what you wish for.
Thanks, Simon. Yeah, really do appreciate it. Look forward to connecting either via DM or elsewhere. Thanks again.
Cheers.
Simon, first thing I'd like to say is I was on the call last night where you were accosted and interrogated, and I just want to say I admired your rank. You are a far better man. I don't think I would have put up with that.
I did lose it at one stage.
But the question I have for you is there anything that can be done about the burn rate that currently we're witnessing in the Celsius bankruptcy, where they're just churning through an obscene amount of money per month? Is that just something that we have to let play out, or is there any way to stop it?
Yeah, there again, I'm not actually a Chapter 11 bankruptcy expert. I'm with them. We've got legal counsel. We're working the process, but I've got a team on these things, and I'm trying to do the public facing part. But yeah, if the trustee takes over, then I think we could stop this pipe dream of the company coming alive under Alex again. And Alex is he's a spender. He's a big thinker. He's a dreamer, and so he's willing to spend any amount of money to try and look like he's doing what he can. And so I think we should be scaling right back and putting together a strategy of how to preserve as much funds as possible, so that other teams can take over. But he wants to hold on to all those staff. And again, I'm not talking about non-publishing here, and I can't say anything about. I can't say anything about non-public information, but I'm reading, and I interpret this action as he doesn't want to lose any of the staff because he believes that that he can build this big business that he originally set out to achieve, which was based upon a flawed business model. So what can we do? I think the sooner Alex steps aside and maybe trustee takes over, or we get in a position where they face that this is the assets are moving to other entities and other type of reorg, then there's millions and millions of costs you can cut down there. And they want to make a huge, ginormous, risky mining business. I quite like the idea of that business going IPO, but that's That's a 1-year strategy, new management. Running an IPO is a highly regulated business that requires vast transparency, and people that haven't been classified as bad actors. So from my perspective, it's about it is being held back by one person. That's what I believe.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to jump in?
I have another question.
Hello. Oh, go ahead.
Go for it. You want to do another
Hi
question?
there.
Okay.
You viewed the IMF as an institution dedicated towards promoting the supremacy of the U.S. dollar in the world. Do you think there's a way, or have people talked about the possibility of a version of the IMF, except one that was aligned along cryptocurrency principles and taking advantage of the blockchain and that sort of thing?
What an interesting question. Do you know what? The way I think there is. I think it's Bitcoin. I think that people using Bitcoin savings and this is what brings all of this together. The Celsius business model was a very interesting business model from my perspective, that people don't want to sell their Bitcoin. So they lock up their Bitcoin in an over-collateralized manner, and they borrow against that Bitcoin, and we move to a hard money standard. And people start to experience the concept of savings again, to collateralize your spend, bring out your spending money, so that you can then invest. And that's a world that we've never experienced before. When I think of money, I think of it in 4 phases. I think of it as you have your money that you spend, and fiat currency is better than that for anything else. It's got to be denominated in the same currency that the vast majority of your expenses are in. Otherwise, you're subject to foreign exchange risk. Then you have saving. Now, saving should be money that is designed for the long term to go up in value. So historically, gold has played that role, and I think Bitcoin still plays that role with more of a risk than most people are willing to take. But if it's savings, then it should have a longer time price tag on it, a longer time frame, shorter time preference thinking. But once you've generated a wealth effect by getting through a couple of the Bitcoin cycles, you can then borrow against it to meet your spending, and only take a percentage of that as risk. And people ask, why would someone like you have your money in Celsius? And people have criticized me for that. The reason is because I did my risk management. I have a percentage of funds that I'm willing to put at risk, in order to not sell my Bitcoin, borrow against it. And then the bit where I got a bit more over leveraged was when I put enough Bitcoin in Celsius in order to pay the interest on that loan, so that it was a free loan. I'm comfortable that I took that risk, and it was risk managed, and the percentages were acceptable for me. I'm still pissed that it went wrong. See certain things, but and then people can start investing. It's just the third phase of money. And investing is taking your hard money and trying to get a higher return, because you're putting it at risk. If your investing goes well, you tend to contribute and spend into society, and it's a wealth effect. So I'm really excited about that concept. So I think Bitcoin can achieve it at the global level. IMF is meant to be a global organization, but if you've read John Perkins' Tales of an Economic Hitman, you know the story behind the IMF, and you know it was a way of getting dollar loans globally so that the US could build their foreign policy, put military bases around the world, and build the foundation of the American empire. Which they did very successfully, but it's now at the end of the debt cycle, and the trends and the next 20 years will be a changing story, I believe. So yes, I think IMF will have another go with their spare rights. They might try and put it on a blockchain, launch their central bank digital currency. We're going to see a lot of those. I just don't know how you get geopolitically neutral multi organizations, because everyone has their country agenda, and so you need political neutrality. And the only example of political neutrality I've ever seen is mass encode and Bitcoin. So maybe you can get financial institutions that build on top of Bitcoin, but any centralized organization will always have their agenda and bias. So you need that politically neutral base layer, which I think is Bitcoin. Next question.
Simon, I've got a bounce in 2 minutes, so I'll keep this brief. Just a couple of comments. First and foremost, Loans was just on, and I love what David Adler is doing. I think he's a great attorney. I think Loans is putting some good, rational content out there. So kudos to you guys. You guys know that. You guys are kind enough to retweet some stuff I put out there. But just a couple comments. Full disclosure, I'm part of the ad hoc committee. So I'm also underprivileged, but I just wanted to make a few comments, just give my thoughts very quickly. First of all, I do think, and this is my own opinion, this is purely my opinion and speculation, I think that this particular case is unprecedented, as you know. It's never happened before. I think there is a fair amount of politics at play within the courtroom. I think that you have Celsius, which is trying very hard to hang on in any way, shape, or form possible. Delusions of grandeur. I mean, they really think they have a shot. And as you know, again, this is not. This is my own opinion. I'll say that again. Full disclosure. I think that what you have is you have a company that is trying very hard to delay certain things for multiple reasons. Going to detail on my thoughts as to why they're doing what they're doing, but because that would be, that would be presumptuous. But I do think there's that.
Go for it. If you disclose it's presumptuous, you can say what you want.
Well, how about this? I think that I personally believe that you're going to see Kirkland. Kirkland has not done. Kirkland's doing their job. They're a high end firm, right? They're good at what they do, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So they're not putting out misinformation. They're taking the information that Celsius is giving them, and they're distributing it to the courtroom, to the judge, and to the trustee, and also the UCC's in there. I think that it would be nice for Celsius if they could be salvaged, but the truth is they can't. For multiples, in my opinion, I agree with you. They just simply can't. There can't be Celsius in its current form ever because A, there's far too much liability, and B, there's going to be, who knows what could be coming after this as far as civil or possible, criminal litigation. But I think that within the next month or so, I do feel that there is going to be some important decisions made by the judge. And again, that is not, I'm underprivileged. That is not any information that I have been given. It is just my own personal opinion based on the facts that what I'm seeing and what I'm putting together in my own mind. I think there will be. And if there's an examiner appointed, it would be very interesting. It's unprecedented. And I spoke to Tom. I love Tom. Tom and I speak from time to time. And he said, dude, you have no idea. And this is insane. I mean, this is just, again, he kept, using the word just nuts. It's awesome. It's going to be written about in future, books. The last point I'll make very briefly, last comment, is I lost my train of thought. I do think that there's going to be a motion, and there might already have been something out there on Stretto. I think costs are going to be seriously scrutinized very soon. So someone earlier had mentioned the huge operating costs that Celsius is currently engaging in, which to most people makes little sense because this is a this is a company that, you know, theoretically could run on a skeleton crew. How are they burning through, you know, what was it, $30 million a month? I guess that was the last number. Maybe it's less now. I have no idea. But you know, and thanks to David too, who I think he filed a motion to prevent the old CFO from coming back. But I do think you're going to see some positive developments. The one thing I'll say is that there is a level of bureaucracy in that courtroom between all the you know, whether it's Kirkland or whether it's White, whether it's the UCC or Celsius. There's a little bit of grandstanding, in my opinion, and that's only my opinion. But I do think we are going to see some major moves within the next 30 to 45 days. That is all.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks for that, John. We got jump in.
Hello, hi. Can everyone hear me? Hi. Just a question. Just want to say thanks for organising this, Simon. It'd be refreshing to hear a group of intelligent, well-spoken individuals as opposed to other chats. Maybe I know Plan C's here, and you guys had organised some similar spaces earlier. Just a thought, if you guys would consider maybe doing this just regularly, maybe once a week or something. You find I fit into the Cell Spaces chat. It's not really my scene. So I think something else for maybe some of the other individuals will be possibly helpful. I don't think there's another group with like-minded individuals, and I appreciate learning things from yourself, Simon. So just a thought. My question was, Celsius is under the 120-day exclusivity agreement. I'm not too sure what this entails. If you could shed some light, and also, does that mean that not much can happen within this 120 days, and we're really waiting for that to come to an end, and then we'll start seeing some action?
Yeah, again, so my non-lawyer, non-bankruptcy expert,
yeah, no, completely understand.
Is that they. So what it means is that any recovery plans have to go to Celsius's investment bank. And the investment bank is motivated to do a deal because they disclosed the terms of that investment bank publicly. So they get a cut of any deal they can do. But still, Celsius is the client. And as John said, there's bureaucracies around fully understanding what agendas and what games are being played here, which is there's a game around I believe a strategy around burn all the cash and then extend 120 days and get everyone fatigued, and drive people into Chapter 11 liquidations. I think there's valid strategies that are there, but basically, I expect if the examiner process means that there's a full-blown investigation into all of the nefarious activities that have happened within this company. But
would that be by the trustees?
Well, I've been told that takes about a year, so that's the trustees.
Okay.
The other is you can have an overhaul, which is where the US trustee takes over. I think it should have been that. And I'd like to see that happen, and maybe that does happen. Because I think after 120 days, you get an application for an extension, and then that has to be looked at by the unsecured creditor committee. And we don't, the unsecured creditors committee are meant to be doing what's right by creditors, and Alex Majinsky, deeply persuasive person, and so he could persuade them that you should invest in my Bitcoin mining operation, and you should approve BIP financing, and everyone should reinvest in me again because, the grandiose narcissist that can solve this.
I appreciate that. Off topic, you can completely decide not to answer this, but sitting on the spaces, Alex and his wife present just made me absolutely sick. What are your thoughts on this? And I think allegedly, I don't know if there's collusion going on between certain members and Alex, but it just seeing him there made my blood absolutely boil. Do you have any thoughts or ideas?
A bit of always try and see things from both sides type person. So my dominant state of being is what you just said. That I'm really upset that and I just need to be reminded of all the things that do upset me. But trying to channel that into motivation, not into not into revenge or anything that's disempowering that doesn't help us. I'm trying to channel that into remembering what we're doing here. There is wrongdoing, and we need to try and support people in getting as much of their funds back as possible. And it's not my job; it's the justice system's job, regulators' job, to find out what happens there. But putting, and again, it's hard to do. But trying to just understand the world from Alex right now. He probably wants to. He probably wants to listen to the community that makes a little bit better about probably the worst time in his life.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, he has to wake up in the morning, and he has to perform. And at the end of the day, we are codependent because he holds the key to a lot of stuff, even though it's trying to be gradually transferred and moved over. And so he needs to keep up his motivation, and that's just the reality of the situation that we're in. And I think if I were him, I'd probably want to hear what the community is saying that in developing my plans, because the community has useful feedback. And I'd also want, in a world where everyone hates you, and you've caused things that psychologically would destroy you as a human if you understood the impact that you've had on some people.
So I guess you want to find some support.
You'd want to gravitate towards the support, and he probably gets that in his family, and there's a niche community that's given him that. So let's try and see things from both sides and just focus on what's important. But I understand your emotion, and I understand that emotion because I experience it too.
Yeah, no, great answer, and I think that's why we kind of all support you. So I mean, just a very well, I guess, level-headed individual, which I think is very refreshing in these times. So thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. And on Spaces, funny that you said that. Plan C just messaged me before this about saying, "Can we do some regular Spaces?"
Excellent. Yeah, sign me up.
Okay.
Thanks
Plan
all.
C, you're gonna announce something, right?
Yeah, we could. Norm can go. Norm had his hand up first, so I'll let Norm go, and then I can announce stuff after.
Okay, cool.
Well, that ties right into what they were just saying. So you go ahead. I just have a short comment after.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just was just thinking about it a bit more today, and yeah, I think there's a large percentage of the community that just is looking for kind of like general updates and something to kind of help them get through the coming months. So yeah, why not do a weekly MA with yourself, Simon, and then also I'd like to do a summary post all the hearings. So like any major hearing or major event to do with Celsius, I was thinking of hosting basically just a summary discussion with people like David, if he's able to still do that. I'm just waiting to hear back from him as far as if he can still do that, because he's working with the loan guys now. So, but yeah, maybe David, Thomas, Simon sometimes, a couple other people that might make sense to host that. So those are kind of the things that, the things that I'm looking to kind of do to help the community. Just some weekly calls. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking to put together here.
Oh, that sounds great. Again, Nancy, I know you've been quite instrumental in kind of rallying the troops together. So yeah, great to hear it.
Yeah, and our goal is to try and not reach the reptilian part of the brain where we're arguing and attacking each other, because we're all capable of going there and being there. And if we can host a space where actually this is just let's just talk like humans, and not let us get to a bad place. That's what we're trying to do, because we're all capable of doing it. If anyone doesn't have a question and you're on the speaker list, could you step down and I'll just let some more people in? Cool. Who's next?
You can take down.
I could go. Hi, Simon. My name's Manny. I've been on your calls pretty close to since the beginning. So I also want to thank you, just because you were kind of like a voice in the darkness when a lot of us were scared in the beginning and not sure. And of course, it's still, a scary situation. Yeah. So, well, one thing is that I'm the owner of the non-accredited EARN group, which hasn't officially started an ad hoc committee yet. We're considering it. We're sort of watching what's happening with the other groups. So we're people who were grandfathered in product after April 15th, when they sort of wouldn't let add more money, but they right, they wouldn't let people add more money, but they also didn't move us to custody. Is basically the situation.
Why were some moved to custody and some not?
So what actually happened was nobody was moved to custody. Like, just to be clear, automatically. Like, what happened was you got an email and old funds. So, like, let's say you had 1 Bitcoin in custody. It would stay there unless you withdrew it to custody. You couldn't add any more Bitcoin.
Do you know where it was held? Do you know where it was held? If they said it's in custody, where was it held? Do you know?
If they said it was in custody, it was probably eventually in custody. I mean, my suspicion is...
Yeah, Jack, investigate Prime Trust, because I know that they had the Prime Trust issue and a bunch of funds were in Prime Trust. And if it was in Prime Trust, then it was held in custody, because I know Celsius are trying to, again, all public information, they're trying to reclaim some money that's still held up at Prime Trust.
Oh, interesting.
I'm wondering whether it made its way to Prime Trust and it actually was held in custody, or whether it was just all commingled and invested and trying to unwind and all sorts of weird things.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Like, my assumption is that if it says EARN, it's commingled, but we do need to investigate that. I mean, basically, the launch of custody, it was a copy of the BlockFi settlement, but Celsius, so far as we know, didn't talk to anybody, other than that their lawyers advised them to copy the BlockFi settlement, which is something like custody, which had this whole grandfathering in element to it. So, like, the custody, is to get non-accredited investors into custody, but they didn't move any fund custody automatically, at least that I know of. I have never heard of a case of money being moved automatically. So yeah, anyway, I mean, if people are interested, we do have a group called Non-Accredited EARN on Telegram, and you can go to, you can find us at rebrand.ly/non-accredited. So there is that. But actually, what I wanted to talk about with you today, Simon, is an idea that I have. I actually have 2 ideas. And like, one question is just like, what is the best way to get you ideas? Because it's like a 1-pager. So like, I can try to explain it, but also I'd love to send it to you.
Yeah, tricky. Best way to get me is to send it to BnkToTheFuture support, and then it gets in front of me.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy to tell you.
My DM is just dead. Like, I can't keep up with any way of contacting me. I can't keep up with anymore. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I figured that, which is why I hopped on a call. So I can try to explain it to you if that's cool.
But yeah, these spaces are best.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, okay. So basically, here's the idea. So, if BnkToTheFuture or another competitor wants to start a Bitcoin bank to essentially replace Celsius, it'll need long-term customers. And the higher the number of customers, the higher the assets under management, the more valuable the company will be. So the idea I had to increase the number of long-term customers and prevent a huge number of people from leaving the new company is what I called the Bitcoin bonus program. And essentially the way it works is that customers who agree to leave some or all of their Celsius recovery in the new Bitcoin bank and lock it up for a number of years would receive bonus Bitcoin that would be locked for the duration of their commitment. It's not really a free lunch, because customers would sacrifice years of liquidity on top of the wait for a bankruptcy settlement to get a somewhat higher recovery. The idea is people could borrow against their coins that are theirs, but the bonus part would essentially be owned by the bank, and you would lose it if you were to leave. So like people who participate in this could still receive stock in the new company, but they would also receive bonus Bitcoin because they're giving up their liquidity for many years in exchange for making the company basically an immediate success. So like my worry when I heard your plan, and it was sort of like whoever leaves, they might leave, right? And like maybe 80% of people leave. So the idea is this plan could get more people to keep their money in. And I would just note that like Nexo, which is one of the few successful, C5 products, like they, I think actually having lockups is good, but in this case, it's very long lockups. So that's kind of that's basically the way that would work.
I love it. I'm just DMing you now, and if you reply, you're in. Yeah, I'll take a look at the plan.
Awesome. So that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. I'll send it to you. And then my other idea is for the mining, which like I don't know that you even want to deal with the mining. But I can boil down the idea for the mining. It's like an even shorter idea. I think they should take all the machines and all the facilities and go to major public mining companies and do a machine and facility for restricted stock swap. Get rid of Mashinsky, get rid of the management. It like gets rid of the 4-year, life of the machines. No cash needs to change hands in a bear market. No Bitcoin needs to change hands. I love the idea. The problem is that it gets people zero cash for the mining operation today. So I don't know how the bankruptcy court would feel about it. And also, like, I have no idea if the mining companies would go for it. But that's the general idea for how to dispose of the mining. So, like, for example, if we wanted to get Riot blockchain stock, but it would probably have to be restricted stock, and we'd get it, like, unlocked eventually. So it doesn't get people liquidity, but it gets around, like, the low value of the current value of the mining operation and the fact that it's hemorrhaging money.
Yeah, no, I like that too as well. I think it's brilliant. And that overcomes the problem of how to get a brand new IPO through, which would take a long time. But there's 3 iterations of that. There's the brand new IPO, which I know one of the community members is really pushing, Anthony. Sorry if I've said this wrong. Is it Anthony Napolitano or Pomp? It's not Pomp, as in Pomp. But I think his name is Anthony Pompliano as well. Plan C, do you know who it is?
Yeah, I can't remember how to pronounce it properly, but it sounds very similar to Pompliano. We thought he was Pompliano the one day, but it's close to it.
Yeah, he's a community member. He's kind of halfway between the squeezers and also like putting together interesting business plans around an IPA. So, but yeah, the downside to that is getting a new one through is going to be fraught with problems. I've also got a company that's in the midst and at the final stage of it. And then you've got the ones that are already public. So it's worth pursuing all 3, I think. And again, what I think the best way of doing that is get the US trustee to take over, and then we can put together these plans without some of the legacy issues that would get in the way of all these things.
I 100% agree, Simon. So one thing is I've been interviewing a ton of bankruptcy lawyers because it's just to maybe form this ad hoc committee. And also a lot of them have conflicts because of the other committees and everything else. So I've been talking to even more. And like what I'm hearing is that, it's hard to get that done. But I think if like the UCC and the ad hocs and everyone would all unify and file motions at the same time, we could maybe get it done. However, normally a trustee, and you're probably hearing this from your lawyers too, is like a liquidator. So we have to find like probably a reputable caretaker CEO and like have a short list in advance and then file the motion. And like I think if there was like actually a plan and like broad support for it, which I hope we could get, maybe it's possible.
Cool. Firstly, thank you for all these ideas. I can give you feedback on the ideas, but I just can't discuss the things we are actually doing.
Totally makes sense. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Cool. So I've DM'd you, so just reply to that.
Yep.
Thank you. Who's next?
I guess I can go.
Hey, Simon? Oh, I just wanted to ask a really quick question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Hi. Yeah, I think you've answered this before, but if we get a certain percent back, you said we might get half of what we put in. Will that half reflect the time that we get that back, or what we actually put in there in the beginning? I mean, that it reflected in the beginning. Because Bitcoin was, it goes up and down and stuff. So by next year.
Yeah, so there's a big, this depends if it's payment in kind or not. And I've just worked through payment in kind, and I think it's worth having a whole space just about payment in kind. Because every time I work through it, it takes me back to ending up in stable coins, which is kind of the same as a liquidation. But so firstly, I don't know what they're going to do. Celsius is going to propose something, and they've got to tell us what payment in kind means, and then if people have very clear ideas, get them to the UCC. That's worth doing. And so every time I work through this, I think, right, okay, so it has to be equal, and I put a tweet out there that I think equal is the goal. And so if they've lost more Bitcoin than they've got ETH, then how do you get to equal? Well, you have to make an opinion about what currency is going to be the base currency, and then you'd have to sell everything and put it into that base currency. Now, the advantage of ETH is that most of their funds are in ETH, and so that's a bit non-controversial. What's the downside of ETH? It's about to go through a merge, and if that blows up ETH, everyone's going to go berserk at Celsius for putting all their funds into ETH. And, that's an extreme, but hey, extreme things happen. The last time ETH went through a hard fork, the main chain, a new chain was created that orphaned the old chain, and the old chain became Ethereum. The original chain became Ethereum Classic, and a whole new brand new chain came because they wanted to bail out people that had lost money in the DAO illegal security. So crazy things can happen. But then if you put it all into Bitcoin, then hey, Bitcoin could significantly underperform something like ETH if it successfully gets through the merge. Then everyone would be pissed that you lost the money by putting it into Bitcoin. So to me, everything defaults straight back to the safest option, which is stable. And so then it's kind of like a liquidation, but then you could put everything into stable and then buy the proportion of the tokens that everyone originally had, but then you've got price speculation. What if that trade works against you? This is a serious amount of Bitcoin and ETH. It could move markets. Every time I then start working through that, it's complicated, and then add to that you got Cell token. There's an argument that Cell token's worth zero. And so does everyone then get hit by socializing the Cell token lost across everybody?
Well, we're not going to know, I guess. And if so it's who knows?
But I do think that there needs to be a fair amount of thought put into that process, so that there's a very clear bunch of proposals put forward to the UCC to lobby for, because and literally I got accused of that being FUD just for saying we should talk about this. What's your ideas? And there's a really good thread where people gave their ideas.
It's so silly. All these people, these troll people, are just picking on you bad.
No worries. So yeah, sorry, I can't give you an answer, but I do think it's a really interesting question, and
Yeah.
a lot of thought needs to be put into it.
Okay. Okay. Well, cross our fingers. I hope it's sooner than rather than later. But I'll let you get on to your next person.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, Simon. I'm gonna jump in. First of all, I want to say thank you, and you're a lucky guy, just like Thomas is a lucky guy, because you're a money junkie and you're getting to play in a unique money world, and Thomas is getting to play in his unique bankruptcy world. So you're both having fun. Glad to see that. And we're all learning stuff from you. So that's kind of interesting. This is a unique situation. What you just said about Bitcoin or maybe Ethereum and maybe, oh, you can't do sell. I actually put together a sort of an idea, a plan, and I don't know why everybody's thinking that they have to be on one platform, on one kind of basis, because each coin can be calculated individually with a simple spreadsheet. And I put together a plan, and I believe I sent it to a number of people, and I have it on Google Docs if anybody's interested. But basically, it uses the in-kind reward for the proportion of the coin that you have in your wallet when they went bankrupt. Anybody can read it. I don't want to get into it in the weeds of it, if you will, because I don't want to bogart the
So
conversation.
does it factor in the fact that Celsius has lost a lot more Bitcoin than they have ETH, that type of thing?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that's the problem. I didn't know what the beginning numbers were at the day they filed bankruptcy, and I don't know what the numbers are now of all the coins right now.
Yeah, you can get the Bitcoin ETH from the last coin report, but then they had this section called other tokens.
Well, whatever it is, the calculation can be done the same way. But yeah, to answer your question, briefly, the idea is that you're going to get back the dollar value of your coins when they filed bankruptcy. But it's going to be in the denominations and the proportions of the coins that you had and that you decided to have in your wallet. So it was your choice to have those coins. And so that's what you're getting back. If it turns, let's say and by the way, my plan will only work. It will not work if we go back down into the winter that we had when they filed the bankruptcy. It will work better and better if we're coming out and getting into a bull market, because then here's what happens. You're going to get if the coins go up, you're going to get the value of the coins in kind of what you had when it filed. So you're going to have less coins because it went up. So the difference is money that Celsius will be able to use to basically, to buy the coins, and also as a liquidity to maybe pay some of the debts. So the better the rate goes up, the better the bull market, if you will, the better we can. And my idea is to do what similar happened to Voyager, where they paid everybody out their USD dollar. I already got my money from the wallet from USD, but after they declare bankruptcy, the idea is to get everybody back their in-kind coins to the level that they had when they filed immediately, and then what's left goes through the bankruptcy process. That's basically the idea that I had.
Yeah, it sounds like one of the fairest ways of doing it, to be honest.
I
need to think through it a bit more.
Yeah, exactly. That was the idea of the fairness. Okay, so have fun, and I hope to see you. And Thomas.
And by the way, if anyone wants to, this doesn't have to just be Q&A. If anyone wants to jump into the conversation that other people are bringing up, feel free.
I'll say one thing about what Manny was saying. He's right. Nexo has what they call fixed term options on your coins. So you can, I just recently did it. I took my Ethereum that had run out of the fixed term, and I put it for 30 days, and I get an extra 1% at lock for the 30 days. The longest term that they had the 3-month term, and they had a 1-year term only on their Nexo token. The rest of them were only 3 months terms. And I kind of wondered if Celsius had these terms where you got extra percent by putting in a term, there would have been no way they could have had that kind of withdrawal panic because it was locked up.
Yeah, exactly. So the term is the solution to you can't have everything, right? You can't have low risk, high return, instant withdrawals, no fees, and that's what Celsius promised, and then slagged off the competition if they had any of those things. So the term thing is the way that CDs and the traditional markets deal with savings accounts.
Well, I appreciate, again, learning from you and learning from Thomas, and being a part of this unique situation we have with money and bankruptcy and crypto. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Norman. Okay, who else wants to jump in?
I'll go ahead. Hey, first of all, I just wanted to say congratulations to you and your wife, Bliss. 14 years, that is amazing. Kudos to you for that. Most of mine are like 48 hours, and that's about as much as I can do. But I appreciate, I've been in some spaces where you've been in there, and other people have been in. I appreciate that you handle yourself as calmly as you do. One question is, how did you learn to be like that? And another question is, in those spaces, and I don't know if it's coincidence or what, it's like Alex Mashinsky pops in, and then it's like seconds later you pop in. Is there like a freaking algorithm on Twitter or something like that alerts y'all when y'all are going into rooms? That's amazing to me. But
no, I think it's just everyone tweeting me, asking me to jump in.
Okay, that was going to be my other question, if you got DMs or anything. But yeah, man, I think your speech and the way you articulate yourself is amazing. And y'all talked about Anthony Napolitano.
That's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry, Anthony. Yes, I said that wrong.
Yeah, if you two could get together, he has great ideas, and I don't want to elaborate on them because I would screw it up. But if you could DM each other and get together, I think that would be amazing.
Cool. Thank you.
And that's all I got.
Awesome. Right. How do I do it? It's a pretty personal question. Maybe I'll go there. Okay, it's my wedding anniversary. Maybe a personal. I was brought up just by my father, and I wasn't brought up by my mother. And my mother has a bit of a personality disorder, and I learned at a very young age how to block things that are very, very destructive and maintain composure. And I was a pretty quiet child, and that stuck with me through most of my life. And so things don't affect me as much as they would. I have this mechanism for blocking things and just trying to think through what it actually means. And I think that just came from my childhood. Sorry for getting deeply personal, but it's actually the honest. I think I developed that, and it just came through, which allows me. But it doesn't always. I also lose my rag, and there's certain things that push my buttons and gaslight me. So cool. Next question.
Is that me?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, it could be me. First of all, Simon, thank you very much for everything you're doing. And the last comment you did is, I grew up, and I'm not as smart as you, but, I grew up feeling a little bit different. And I've got a son now who's way smarter than me, and he's 9 years old, and he is struggling because he doesn't connect with the other 8-year-old kids that are like, all they want to do is talk about farts and, balls and whatever it is. So I totally understand that. But I want to thank you for all the things you've done. The one thing I would tell you, because I've been in a lot of these spaces, and a lot of people try to attack you, and I think they don't. But the reality is everyone is questioning your motives. But at the end of the day, whatever plan you put forward, that's the time to, scrutinize what your motives are. So I just want, sorry, go on, say something.
Yeah, my motives are the same as they've been from day one, which is that there's several things that really make me want to get up in the morning and make me want to stay up all night and make me be on these spaces. Primarily, I'm a money geek, and the subject of money and everything and all the aspects around it excite me. And these projects, a bit like Thomas with the bankruptcy side, they're like a hobby almost. So restructuring something in crypto is what I would do for fun. So that's primarily that. The second one is I consider myself a people's person, and I don't like the fact that people have lost money and they were misrepresented. I really don't like that at all. And I want that to be put right. That's the second thing. The third thing is me as the business. So that's me as the human. Me as the business person. I've lost a lot of money and I'd like that back. I don't like losing Bitcoin. My mantra since I first got into Bitcoin was I want to have more Bitcoin each month than I had the previous month, and I've just broken my rule. And so I don't. So I'm trying to fix that for myself. I also have retirement plans and a partnership with Celsius, and those people had money in Celsius, and I'd like to see if I can get that back for those people. My business had some money in Celsius as well. I'd like to try and get that back. A bunch of people invested in shares in Celsius through our platform. That has been wiped out, and that's just an inevitability now. But a lot of those were depositors. So I'd like to try and see if we can support them in their deposits. And at BnkToTheFuture, we have aspirations of being a Bitcoin investment. We've been working on that for over a decade now. And we're at the final stages of having everything we need to fulfill that vision. And right back in the early pitch, we wanted to do something in the debt markets, and seeing this industry evolve, I thought there's an opportunity to not do what FTX and others are doing, where they're lurking behind the scenes and then they buy it up for pennies on the dollars, but actually to do something a bit more crazy, which is give everyone shares in that company and allow them to have the recovery. And that's simply it. It's not a very good business strategy, but I think it's got a lot of business karma.
No, but it's what's going to make you feel fucking amazing on your deathbed, and I applaud you for that, and I see that, and I get slightly upset because I'm not pro you, not against you, but I get really annoyed when I look at the amount of time that other Twitter spaces spend questioning your motives, when it's simply it's like, it's fair enough to not believe in you, but at the end of the day, it's not like you can present a plan that needs no voting, so that's going to happen anyway. So everything you've done for the space, my perception, and I hate when people say I'm a good judge of character, because that to me is usually a red flag that you're not. But all I've seen, you, Plan C, I've had a few DMs with Plan C, like I see no malicious intent in either of you. The one thing I would say that I think where you could get help is when you look at like marketing, positioning, PR, understanding, there's a business side of it. And I don't believe that the current structure of Celsius business is ever going to survive. But what we have to remember is there's two things. One is the structure of the business, i.e., where do we make money? How is it set up? And the other part is the belief in not the community, in people that are going to spend money. People talk about community in the short squeezers. When they say community, that is a small part of the customer base.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the only area where I'm like, and it's because I spent the last 20 years working in advertising. I ran a series of advertising agencies, is where you can really excel is like how to understand not the community part, the customer base. How do we turn, whether it's turning into new co, how do we shift the narrative into something that drives more customers?
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for that feedback. The couple of things I say is that we already have a customer base at BnkToTheFuture in a profitable business.
Yes, and I know that, and you are super strong. Sorry, this is not an attack on you.
No, it's not. No,
just hear
I'm
what
not
you're
taking it
saying,
as
because
attack.
I know
Yeah.
you have a strong customer base, and I'm like, how do we make that even stronger? How do you take what happened here? That's the only part where
I'll
I'm
tell
like,
you
maybe
the
you don't have a lot of knowledge, or the thing is, nobody can focus on everything at the same time. So
no,
please
I'll tell
understand
you
that
the
I'm like,
answer.
right.
No, I'll tell you the answer. We've been waiting for a retail license until we can market, and it's taken us this long to get there. And as soon as we have that license, then we'll inject a lot more capital into this business and build out a world-class marketing team.
It's not even collateral. It's and again, I don't know the answer, but unless you have I believe you're a fucking super smart guy, and I believe in you and the stuff you do, you need to have a CMO that you find super annoying.
Oh yeah.
Yes, only because of the fact that you are so driven to be following rules, regulations, which is right. And you need to have a CMO that wants to push you in the other direction. So unless you have a CMO that goes, if you go, this guy is a little bit annoying, he's stopping me from being perfect all the time, having that natural balance, that's what you need.
Yeah, this is why I can't wait to make the community shareholders, because I'm
going to apply for the job. I'm going to apply for the job.
Okay, awesome.
Anyway, that's all I want to say. Thank you so much, Simon.
Yeah, cool. And do you know what? Do you know what I used to be before regulations got a hold of me? By nature, my skill set is that's the part of the business I like the most, and I'm just so battered by so many regulators telling me that I can't do shit. It's like I've become this compliant person, and compliance is not. Do you want the secret? The compliance person is Bliss. It's not me. Bliss is the one that tells me everything I can't do and all the legal stuff. And we're only here today because of Bliss's risk management. And I'm not that person. But when you run this company for so long, you become that person. And I actually can't believe that I'm known as I'm arguing regulations and known as a compliance person, because that's so opposite to who I am.
But then maybe that's why you're successful, because I'm nowhere near as successful as you are, but I used to be CEO of a few advertising agencies, and I was always pushing the boundaries, but I always attributed my success to being, I'm actually the guy that wants to run 400 kilometers an hour straight there, but smart enough to go, we still need to follow certain regulation. We still need to be intelligent. So maybe that's it. Anyway, thank you. I'm not going to take more time.
No, awesome. Thanks for the chat. It's interesting to actually talk about these. Can't wait to just get back to business, rather than these dramas.
That's what we want. We want to get to business. We want to start going, what can we do? There is so much brain power in this community that we could take this any way we want. And this fucking bullshit that we're doing right now is not helping anyone.
Thank you. Who's next?
I can go. Yeah, one, I was like on that chat last night. That was just bananas. I still can't understand how these people.
Hey, quick question. How did you find out? I'm just curious. Because I've noticed that when you go on a Twitter space, you start like your circle starts highlighting. Is that how everyone finds these things, or were you just part of the community anyway?
No, I'd never been on. I think I just like randomly was on Twitter.
Yeah,
and
how
like
did you find it?
I think something just like lit up, or there was some tweet that was like, "Oh, check out this
big
thing."
So if I join a space, then suddenly this thing pops up, and everyone knows I'm joining a space.
Yeah, something like that. I was like not looking for it, and I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And then I joined. Anyway, I was listeing to it.
Okay,
and then,
so I'm when I join a Sales Squeeze space, I'm bringing all of my community into that.
There's different things you can do with that. Anyways, it's another topic, but there's all sorts of like features in the app where you can do different things with that. But anyways,
okay, cool.
just to add that I think Twitter algorithm works in a funny way. I don't follow any one of the Sales Squeeze crew, but it just pops up on the feed saying someone's hosting a space. I guess from previously clicking on a link or following someone. So that's all.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, I think my experience was the same because I wasn't part of any of those chats. I was part of these, but in any event,
I do love Twitter Spaces, though. I think it's awesome. Yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Pretty remarkable. I thought it was bananas that like they weren't able to understand why creditors, right, like people who had deposits and actually have a claim, are different than just people who hold tokens, and they were getting like incredibly emotional about that. But it's just like so obvious and black and white. It's bananas. But anyway, the question I wanted to ask you is unrelated. So you're a big Bitcoin guy. I have some Bitcoin, but I also have a lot of gold.
Yeah.
And Pax G, right, makes gold, like using gold, a lot easier. I don't know if you heard of this company called GlinPay, but they basically make gold so you can spend gold. And I was just curious, being such a big Bitcoin guy, like, why do you see Bitcoin as superior to gold in like gold's history?
Oh, right. Okay. So I'm not one of those Bitcoin superior to gold. I'm one of them. Bitcoin is Bitcoin and gold is gold. Gold. So I don't like custody, and gold drives people to custody. Because it's so freaking hard and dangerous to store. But I like physical gold. And I think it fulfills a use case that Bitcoin can't fulfill, which is a long-term store of value that actually is pretty reliable at storing purchasing power, but not putting you into the speculation where you're making money. So I don't see gold as an investment. I see it as just hard money, which is a good place to save. But I don't like the fact that everyone that owns gold ends up custodying, and that's because of just the nature of storing physical stuff is pretty dangerous and hard for most people. And so that's the main upside and downside. If we end up into a zombie apocalypse world and the internet goes down, then hopefully we've got satellite ways of nodes and stuff that we can still keep the network going. But gold's going to be pretty useful in that stage. Also, during lockdowns, people couldn't gain access to their gold, and Bitcoin gives you a way of self-custodying and spending. But it's not gold. So I do like gold. It has a place in my savings bucket, and in my traditional retirement plan, I do have a percentage for commodities, which is gold in custody. So I'm no means anti-gold, but just Bitcoin excites me a lot more. And that's not necessarily a good thing, because you should be investing in the things that just excite you. You should be investing in the things that are boring as well. And gold fits that for me. But no, I'm not a Bitcoin is superior to gold person. I'm a Bitcoin and gold sit in the hard money bucket, and Bitcoin is a speculative store of value, whereas gold is an established store of value. And a speculative store of value is likely to significantly outperform a well-established store of value in terms of returns. But it's a mechanism for saving, not for making you money, from my perspective.
Got it. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I've been like going back and forth over the years between the two, but I think like the way you put it, like also is logical. I don't know if you heard the Peter Schiff argument about it, where his angle is like, well, in jail, what's money? Cigarettes. Why? When everything goes to hell, you can do something with cigarettes, right? You can do something with gold. You can make jewelry. You can conduct electricity, whatever. When all goes to hell, like you can't do anything with like some tokens on a computer. That's just his argument, but I don't know. I've been thinking about it, going back and forth.
Yeah, the way I'd counter that is that's true, but at the same time, you've been waiting for the collapse for 20 years. And in the meantime, when it hasn't happened, you've had central bank digital currencies that are going to come to pump up the dollar markets. You've had a big bull market that was pumped by quantitative easing and is a Ponzi scheme. But I subscribe to the approach of don't bet everything on something you think is going to happening. And so I have a dollar portfolio that is a bet and a play that the Federal Reserve can continue the Ponzi scheme, and central bank digital currencies will be issuing that Ponzi scheme alive. And I have a bet and a play that the world reserve currency will change one day, and gold is important in that moment. And I have a bet and a play that China will become the next superpower economy. And we may end up with a world where, you have these supranational, maybe supernatural currencies, that would be cool. But supranational currencies. So my game, and I haven't talked about business for so long, but when we created the Retirement Plan Me online wealth management program, it was about putting together how to be protected for every scenario and just contribute each month. And it's auto diversified across inflation, deflation, economic growth, economic decline, change of empire, bank failure, wars, pandemics. And that once we get through the other side of this next year, I want to release my book that shares how individuals, companies, and countries can play on that. And we'd like to educate everyone that's been victims of this Celsius disaster on how to rebuild their wealth. And I'm really excited by that, and thinking about incentives of how we can get people on those programs and building retirement plans that are just really fit for purpose. So they're never in a situation where they blow up all their money in one company like Celsius ever again.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, I was basically trying to get to the same place that you just described, like in my own ways, investing in like not random, but various different things for all those different plays. But yeah, that would definitely be something that if you get there, when this is all over, at least me, I'm sure plenty of other people too would be interested in, right? Like, because yeah, it's terrible to hear these stories of people who had all their eggs in one basket, right? And that's it's tough. I mean, I have a lot of empathy. At the same time, it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, people, I hope, learn from this experience, right? That like, you can't do that for obvious reasons, but now that it happens, it's kind of like one of those things you don't learn until you learn. But cool. Appreciate it.
Yeah, everyone will know that now, and that's what everyone can take away from this.
Yeah. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Simon.
Hello.
Simon. Hello.
Hello. Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah. Hi, Simon. Simon, a comment and a question. And the comment is one. I'm going to applaud you for your endurance, your ability and commitment to giving the amount of time you're giving in these conversations is clearly something to be admired and to be applauded. So that's the comment. The question for you, and I'm going to drag you back to Celsius, is that there's been some conversation tonight around the timing of when things may not occur. The question that I have is really born from a meeting that I had yesterday. So I spent about 8 hours yesterday with a head of a state regulator. And I'd say a few of those hours were spent specifically focusing on Celsius. And the question that I have is that it is clearly apparent to me, and I think apparent to you and to many others, that through the court process, one of the claimants, or I'll say the litigating entities, will actually be likely each state of the United States in the form of the actions each state would intend to take against the ND Celsius. And so the question I have is whether or not there's a feel or a sense to what those particular actions by individual states in the United States might have on the timing and the resolution of certain of the outcomes for Celsius.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I fully understood the question, so tell me if I haven't answered it. But all of the regulators, I believe, if Celsius tries to come out and relaunch the company, are all going to object. And so they're going to say that it's an unlicensed security. So every state securities regulator is stating that that yield is a security. And so that is why Celsius doesn't reopen unless they figure out how to negotiate them for pass to securing those licenses. But they'd run out of money before that happens. So this is why it's got to be NUCO with the licenses. And so, that's what I said about what licenses needed and how can we put that together. And so that's what I've been working on.
Okay.
I think that there's no, in my estimation, I'd be ultra surprised if Celsius could ever relaunch from this with that management under that brand with that company and take on all those lawsuits.
Okay, I think you did, in essence, I think, understand my question. I think one of the things, though, that I was pondering is that to the extent that each individual state or all the state attorney generals actually collaborate in a class suit, and that their effort is to somehow or another impact the process by creating, if you will, a pool of funds to be distributed to Celsius depositors or others that are resident of the individual states. So you've got the whole process and the plans, if you will, that will come out from whether it's Celsius or
you think there might
be
you think there might be a government bailout? Is that what you're saying?
Well, not necessarily a bailout, but a government suit that essentially looks to recover funds and to become, if you will, the master of how those funds are returned to individual residents of the states who are participants in Celsius.
That would really surprise me if there was funds made available to compensate US investors in each individual state. More likely would be how do they negotiate compensating factors here if it is considered an illegal security, but it's in Chapter 11. So
right,
they're just sat back waiting for the Chapter 11 outcome. And regulators, at the end of the day, I don't think they want a bad outcome for this. I think they would support a good outcome from a good actor and a good player, and that's engaging with those regulators in order to try and make a better solution, because they don't want people are paying tax in order to have consumer protections.
Right.
And they allowed this company to rip off their people. That's embarrassing for them. They're not fulfilling they haven't fulfilled their duty for the tax that paid. And so therefore if someone can come up with a better solution, or just move it to liquidity, I think that's what they want. I think, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think, yeah.
No, fair enough. And so the takeaway I have from your comments is that you wouldn't foresee any extension in terms of the amount of time it's going to take to resolve the issues, as based on any complexity that the individual states might introduce.
Yeah, I think if Celsius tried to reopen, they would fight that till the end.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if
Right.
someone can offer a compliant solution with a solution that they're comfortable with, I think they would certainly not try and get a worse outcome for depositors,
Right.
unless there's some big grand conspiracy that they want their cut, and that does happen.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, thank you again, Simon.
Hey,
Cool.
so I just have a few questions. Thanks. Firstly, I've got a question on the recovery plan. I know that you're barred from discussing in detail due to NDA, so strategically I'll ask about the previous iteration and assume that the two aren't wildly far apart. So I'm just curious, of the total equity in the new co, what percentage of it were you prepared to have reserved for Celsius victims and the debt for equity swap?
Yeah, I can't really comment on that, but I can say it's just numbers and valuations and together models.
Okay, gotcha. Second question is, in earlier conversation, we had discussed ideas for pre-IPO early liquidity for shareholders in case people want that, and you had linked me to the existing secondary market on the Bank to the Future website. I'm just curious why Bank to the Future shares don't currently trade on there.
They're restricted by our regulator. So as a regulated company, we need to get permission from our regulator to do the transfer of shares at the moment. There is a way around that, and that's to become a public company. Now, that doesn't have to be as grand as listing on the NASDAQ. It just means we need to commit to public reporting requirements. At Bank to the Future, we're not quite ready for public reporting requirements because we have to invest significant infrastructure in real-time financial reporting. But as soon as we're ready for that, we could apply to be a public reporting company, and then we can have the transfer of shares either on our secondary market or an alternative market. And we're currently working on reforming securities laws in El Salvador to support this type of infrastructure as well.
Okay, great. And my last question is, I recall around the time of, I think it was pre-Chapter 11, you had tried to put together a Telegram group of the largest creditors, and presumably a few of those folks are now sitting on the UCC. I know for a fact that one of them is. And I was wondering if you're able to glean from those discussions any predispositions or views on things, without identifying any one individual, but more in the aggregate, and if you could speculate on how they would receive, say, a plan that like the cell centered one that came out recently.
So that came from someone invited me to a group where they were trying to put together the top creditors. So it wasn't my group, and I was invited into that group, and I think they managed to get about 20 people into that group. And I'm still in that group. I haven't engaged too much, and I can't comment on anything to do with any conversations with UCC.
Okay, understood. Thanks.
Hey, Simon,
we've got Thomas here.
Yeah,
yeah. Hey, Thomas, you're I notice you're up here. Thomas is the guy that has been studying the bankruptcy on all the crypto cases and been deeply involved in this. So if you haven't met Thomas yet, he's going to be doing a lot. He'll do a lot more stuff. I think he jumped off as well. Cool. Yeah. Sorry, your question.
Sure. I do. You mentioned the other day about having a discussion around the tokens as far as how it should be split up and what's equitable. I do think that's a conversation that would be good to start. I know some people were giving you flack about why are we having that discussion, but I do think that would be a great conversation to start having going forward. And as Plan C just mentioned earlier, I truly think for me personally, I'm not going to claim to speak for anybody else in the community, but for me personally, I think you hosting Twitter Spaces is gonna be a lot a better route to go, because I think these conversations are a lot more constructive than what seems to be happening when you're joining in some of the other ones. I feel like we get bogged down too much in people that want to spend a lot of time rehashing what you might have said or tweeted in the past, and going, it just seems like the conversations deteriorate and there's a lot of attacking going on. And I do think that there's probably a lot more folks that want to just be able to come in here and ask questions about where you see things going, or just get your opinion and about what's happening, where you see the mining operation going, if you think it's possible to IPO it, what you think the UCC may or may not do, just the things that you can comment on. I just feel like that this is a much more positive Spaces call that I think a lot of people are getting value out of. And I don't know if it behooves you to keep going into those other spaces personally. I don't know if it just seems like it just deteriorates and too much time is wasted of your time, that I think a lot of listeners I know would probably appreciate this setting here more than what they're getting in those other settings personally.
Yeah, sure. Okay, I'll just answer that and then you can do your other question as well. Yeah, no, appreciate that feedback. I am actually a pretty obsessive character in that whenever I want to understand a subject, I like to go deep into the people that I disagree with the most. And so the biggest mistake I made was changing the conversation, because when I come on, everyone starts asking me a bunch of stuff, and then the conversation deteriorates. But I'm actually deeply curious, because I do really want to understand if there is an angle where we can put together a solution where everyone's happy. And so there are a segment of the community that are motivated in different ways. And I'm always trying to understand what types of things, because there always might be a way in which another solution could come. And so in these conversations, which sometimes feel to me pretty crazy in terms of execution, there's nuggets of ideas. And one thing I've always done as a person is whenever I'm trying to argue for something, I always spend a lot of time listening to the people that would take the exact opposite view, to try and check my convictions and either get me more convicted or actually learn something new. So I think Norm was talking about Peter Schiff. I think there's a lot of value in listening to how Peter Schiff attacks Bitcoin, because he's got some good points, but also it helps you figure out more conviction for what you actually believe in. So it's just my style. But I completely agree. There's only so many hours in a day, and I put a lot of hours into those, and sometimes the conversation just went pretty crazy. Sorry, so what was your question?
No, I definitely understand that. My question would be around the conversation of IPOing the mining company that came up, that was being discussed yesterday as well. I guess maybe you could answer or host a spaces call, maybe just on the probability of that happening and what it would entail, because I guess when you brought up the comment about, well, if it's not profitable currently, and who's going to pay, are we going to dip into our customer funds currently to be able to fund that going forward? I think that's a conversation that needs to have. There are some in the community that are totally sold on just take the mining company public and it'll make us whole. But I don't think people are seeing some of the other side, like you mentioned, of, okay, well, how does this get funded in the interim? And that to me is a very important question. And then also setting realistic, I guess, not terms, but realistic just time frames on what can and can't happen. Because I know people go in certain chat rooms wanting hopium, but I also think there's a big sector of the Celsius community that just wants what's realistic, and they're not necessarily looking for hopium. Yeah, it's great if there is some hopium in that realistic comment, but I think people just want to know realistically, where do they stand and what are the realistic outcomes that may happen, so that they can prepare for, okay, this is just the reality now that we're in. as opposed to hopium, because I think me personally, I think that probably in the long run does more people harm if they're not being realistic. So that's really my question. Thanks, Simon.
Yeah, no. So the things to think about, and again, my ideas are not fully developed, but I'm just thinking aloud. The first is, you need dip financing to get there, because that's not a fast process. That's a slow process, IPOing. And so do I want to give lenders preference over our credits? Well, to me, I see that as a forced investment in Alex Mazinski at the moment. I don't really want to do that. And so that's the first thing, is how do you get to the IPO? So then when thinking about that, I then think about, well, what's the way of getting there? You could either apply for an IPO, that, especially coming out type of process, would probably take fastest 9 months. So how do you fund the business for 9 months? Well, let's see a realistic model of how do you make the mining company profitable. First thing you need to do is make sure that it's separate from all of the operational hangover of the other businesses. Then you need to make sure it's run by a team. I mean, I can't talk about the non-public information, but the public information, does anyone really know who's running this and what their experience is and what the teams, who's actually there? Is there a decent team running this? Are they frugal? Are they scrutinizing every cost? Because that's what the most successful mining companies I know are. They come from a culture of frugality, and they question everything, and they have to have a cost advantage. And so that's the type of thing that I see in successful mining teams. And then finally,
Fred,
three ways
sorry,
of doing it.
hey Simon. Just Fresh, if you don't mind just muting your mic, and then Simon, if you want to make me co-host, I can mute mics of people that, just because there's a lot of background noise right now. I think Fresh has his. Yeah, cool. Thanks for muting. Awesome.
Cool. And then the third part of that, or I've lost count of what I'm saying because I'm just thinking aloud in real time, is what's the fastest way to get there? So you could apply for a new IPO. That takes a long time. You could tag on to a company that's IPOing now. I know one of those. And I know they'd be excellent for this. Or you could negotiate a deal like was proposed earlier, where you could reverse into payment by shares into an existing public company. Those latter two sound like much better ideas than starting a new IPO. So what needs to happen to make that happen? Well, either the trustee needs to be in charge with some kind of board that would consist of people that can execute that, or equity needs to be issued. All of the assets move over to this new co-equity, and either myself or someone else or another board in that new co could execute these transactions in a timely fashion.
And just to be clear, Simon, when you say a timely fashion, I know it's a range, but what do you consider timely?
So if you were to negotiate a deal, so firstly, an existing company would want a bargain. So unfortunately, you're not going to get the best price. It's a distress sell. But to execute such a thing might take 3 months for an existing public company to get the disclosures and come to terms. A company that's going public right now, trying to get a deal into that, if it were a cash sale, that's fairly simple. Just got to get good due diligence. And then you could tag along an agreement that would be negotiated to get you shares. Then it would just depend on how long it takes to get that company public, which maybe that's a six months deal.
And in your opinion, tagging along on a company that's going public as opposed to trying to be merged into an already public company that you said would want to, to get a really big discount. Why wouldn't that company want a big discount as well? That company see having all the additional miners is bringing equal value to what they're already trying to accomplish.
Yeah, so mining is a business about how fast can you mine a Bitcoin, and that's the entire business. So someone might have all the machines, but if the operation is not ready to mine a Bitcoin, and there's a bunch of shit that has to happen, the readiness of that is what the acquirer will be looking at. Does it provide me a shortcut versus just getting my machines and plugging them in myself? And if it buys them 3 to 6 months shortcut, then 3 to 6 months in mining is a big difference, because miners tend to last two years until you got to reinvest. So I think the community is deeply ignorant around how complex and how hard mining business is, and how specialist it is. And maybe ignorant's not the right word, but ignorant is the word. I don't think they've looked into it deeply. So it's very specialist. So all of that to be explored, and I think time is the factor. All of this is about time, and people are bought time. I think that's a really bad strategy. I think we're working against time. We're trying to move fast here, not slow.
Yeah. All right. No, I appreciate that, Simon, and thanks for that feedback. And I definitely agree with you. I don't think many in the community, me included, truly understand mining and what is involved, and that's why when some people just say, "Oh, all they got to do is get the machines up and running, and then we'll be making all this money," or this or that, I think it's I don't think people realize.
I tell you what's 100% a joke, is that you can pay 80% of your revenue in a mining company to the community or creditors or token holders or whatever. That's like fairyland. There's no mining operation that operates that has 80% spare capacity in terms of margin, operating off a 10% margin, because they and then there's this new industry of selling on the electricity to other means when you're not profitable mining. So yeah, to say you could give 80% of your revenue, not profit, revenue, it's just business ignorance.
Yeah, I saw that tweet or something one day, and I definitely was thinking there's no way. And hopefully they meant profit and not revenue. But even so, with profit, like knowing just what I've learned in some of these calls from some people that do seem to understand mining, that it is intensive with reinvestment. So I didn't think that that was going to be viable. So
yeah, but I mean, I'd be happy with a bunch of my 50% of my Bitcoin equity in what will be a public company or is a company for the mining, and equity in another company that is able to try and build a technology or a financial services company. I think in 3 years we could potentially have done very well on a high risk, high return basis, depending on the management team, the regulations, and the risk model.
No, that makes sense. All right, well, I appreciate it. I'll jump down. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hi. Fresh Refrigeration. My name is Roberto. I'm a contractor. I'm in Sydney, Australia, but my name is Fresh Refrigeration on Twitter. I only started Twitter lately. First of all, Mr. Simon, kudos to you in the way you behaved when you were grilled and abused yesterday. I just cannot believe, especially that lady Clara or Tara. I can't remember her name, who was claiming that she's such a... Okay, all right. She was claiming that she's such a good judge of character. Well, if she was, right, how has she missed the fact that Alex Mashinsky is such a, I don't even know, like such a mischievous person. He was trying till the last minute to lure in retirees and get the, oh my God, like this is, on that alone, it's just, you can judge character on that alone. Now, what I was going to say about the haircut, and this is how I would see it, if I may just say this. In the day of the haircut, we can just work out, as you said, maybe we're only going to get 50% back. So everybody that has, let's say, Cardano, I don't have Cardano on the platform. I'm just giving an example. So they can just get the 50% Cardano that they had, and then the company keeps the rest of the Cardano that's there, and so on and so forth with all the coins. I would say that could work.
So under that model, that would benefit. So creditors would get what they get, and then if the company keeps it, that would benefit equity holders. And so it might not fly. There would have to be a model of what happens with the leftover, which is one of the previous. I think Norm had a model there, which I think was a slight improvement on that suggestion.
Okay. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna. Yeah. I thought it could work, but.
Oh, but then No, sorry, I didn't let you finish it. So you'd have to. What would the company do with the rest of the Cardano? It would be used to try and revive the business, or.
Okay. Well, the company. Let's hope. Well, I know what I want, but yeah. The new company can just use the Cardano and just convert it to Bitcoin if that's the model the company that takes over has as a plan. Let's say BnkToTheFuture, right? So
it would be invested. It would kind of be creditors' funds invested into the new co.
That's right.
Yeah. And I don't think the UCC would be happy with that.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Well,
maybe they would. Maybe they would.
Oh well. Yeah. That's all I wanted.
I guess no. If you were swapping those Cardano for equity, then there's a common factor there.
Oh yeah, 100%. But that's because with your model, 50% is going to be in kind or close to it, and 50% is going to be equity. So obviously, if Celsius Shonky has lost 50% of our coins, we only have 50%.
Sorry, I think I.
You gotta unmute fresh because I think everyone got muted.
Oh right, okay, yeah. Well, what I was saying, that even if let's say 100% of the Cardano is still with Celsius, because we all have to the same pain, because that's the fairest way to go ahead and move on. Well, you only get 50% of your Cardano, and the other 50% stays on the platform and it gets used by the new company, and and you get compensated with equity in the new co, if that's possible. But anyway. Hello?
Oh, everyone got muted again. Yeah, hey.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what you've heard. I was saying that even if
Oh yeah, we heard that fresh. Yeah.
okay, all right.
Cool.
Yeah, that's all. That's all I wanted to say. I mean, if that's considered fair by the community, and it's possible with the regulators. The other thing I was going to ask, this is a question: how, if you can answer this, how do you find the performance of UCC so far? What I have a problem with is with this 90-day exclusivity. When you know for certain that this is like 200%, no regulator will ever issue the required licenses to this company and Mashinsky. It's just not going to happen. So why they haven't done anything about this? It's something that I do not understand myself.
I think it's too early to judge the UCC, but I think the trustee's been a bit more aggressive than the UCC. But I don't want to judge him yet because I think they've been putting a lot together, but I would like to have seen more at this stage. And I'm hoping, I haven't judged it yet. I'm hoping that they're going to jump into gear and that they're working on a lot of stuff. But, I'm curious about, like, have they all got jobs? Are they full-time? I mean, these are just creditors, right? I don't know enough about them yet. But I'd like to see more, but things take a bit of time to get going. But they're spending. They've got the legal team, they've got the financial advisors, and I haven't seen any meaningful motions yet. Thomas, what do you think? You there, Thomas?
Hey guys, yeah, I'm here. It's a little early here.
Oh, okay. But, is it bad time? Yeah.
No. I just wanted to listen and whatnot, but it's been a very productive call. I mean, in general, unsecured creditors, yeah, of course, have day jobs, and they're they're not paid for their roles. So, some of them have representatives that are probably involved in the calls, and of course, their legal and financial counsel are. They have their cases, but they're, of course, being compensated and spending a lot of time on the case.
Cool. All right, I'll let you listen, Thomas. You sound like you're in bed.
It's about 4:55 here, so it's, let me have a coffee first.
Cool. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. I'll jump off and let someone else say something. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap up soon.
Don't take like those people are so aggressive and they just like, oh my god, they're just toxic. I'm not too sure. I mean, I understand your point that you wanna talk to people that agree with you, and yes, that's a valid point. But then there is a limit, though. I mean, that's the way
I agree.
All right,
there may be I need to check myself where maybe ego is taking over and I'm spending too much time on things which is just a tiny part of what I could be doing. So I'll take that feedback. I think I need to spend less time on that.
Hey, Simon, maybe Jimmy should go because he had his hand up before me, and I just wanted to ask one question after that.
Okay, cool. Jimmy?
Yeah. Sorry. I have a few points. Point number one. You know what? I don't mind the situation, to be honest, because I'm also a Mt. Gox creditor, and I've been waiting now many years. But the price of Bitcoin has gone up a lot, so I don't want them to sell. Had they sold my Bitcoin, immediately after the liquidation, I'll be like, wow, lost a lot of money. But they're waiting. And I think the reason why they're waiting is because they know, well, first off, I haven't seen any evidence that there's all this BTC dumping in the market. I've been looking through the papers. I don't see no evidence about that. But,
no, they're not selling Bitcoin. Definitely not. The Bitcoin's locked up.
Yeah, isn't that great? And you know what? Let's lock it up for another 10 years. I don't care. You know?
Yeah.
I don't care.
The challenge is that I'm not measuring my wealth. If anyone follows, I talk about this fiat thinking versus Bitcoin thinking. So I didn't measure my wealth in fiat. I measure my wealth in Bitcoin. And so
Well,
my
to be
goal
honest,
is
no one's entirely sure how wealthy you are, man. You know, go in and make predictions, and you try to make money off of people's opium. But I'm an actual investor. I don't talk about my investments. I don't have to turn that into a marketing strategy. I'm just telling you right now, if Celsius has to get locked up for 10 years in litigation, I understand lawyer fees could take some of that money away.
No,
but,
Jimmy. What I'm saying is, and you can look that I'm a top 50. I think it would be disclosed that I'm a top 50 depositor. I am a full-time investor. I'm a shareholder in most of the companies in this industry, and I run a company that supports other people in doing that as well. So it's literally all I do.
Okay, I don't really care, but anyway, locked up. You know, so if it is locked up, as you know.
Yeah. So Jimmy, what I'm saying is, you know, if I'm owed 1,000 Bitcoin, I don't care what the price. I want 1,000 Bitcoin back. And as the price goes up, it's harder for them to repay me my 1,000.
Well, I never said that you should get something different. Why is this guy keep muting you? Who the fuck is this guy? Get them the fuck out of here.
Hey Simon,
Hey,
so yeah. So sorry Simon, it's just pretty obvious that it wasn't going to be a productive conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's a troll or if, it's just, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if you guys would disagree, but it just
no,
didn't seem
feel
like
free.
I absolutely don't want to. I don't want to remove people, but if it's clearly unproductive, like I think the goal of these calls needs to be focused on. They're like we already talked about. There is a limit, so it's like. Yeah. Anyways, that just didn't seem like it was going to be productive from my perspective. If people disagree, then I'm sorry. Correct me.
I'm glad you did that. I don't want. We don't need to go there.
There's 300 people listening, and their time is all valuable. And I personally am no longer going to engage in these sorts of conversations. I've made in the past of engaging, and I've wasted people's time, and I just don't want to do that anymore.
Thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've made the mistake in the past of engaging. So one question for you, Simon, is I think the phrasing around this new co is extremely important. It's just my opinion. You called it a financial services company. You've also called it a Bitcoin investment bank, and I just feel like, the centralized financial part of crypto has taken a huge hit reputation-wise and trust-wise with Voyager and Celsius and all these other companies. Now, long-term, though, there's some big players that are investing in the centralized financial long-term vision. You got guys like Kevin O'Leary with WonderFi, who is behind the scenes, getting all the licenses for regulation, and he's positioning for not just a Bitcoin bank, but actually like a securities model where, they can offer these other products, these other things, because one of the things with Alex and one of the big visions he shared, and I know this got a huge percentage of the community excited with Alex's long-term vision, which was about not just Bitcoin, but it was about all these other cryptos. And I remember him speaking to eventually, and these are selling the community on these grand ideas. They never became a reality, but these were the things that people got excited about, was eventually, we could have tokenized stocks, we could have all these things. Like I remember Alex basically saying on a call that kind of like Celsius was at the stage of Amazon when they only sold books, basically saying crypto is just the beginning, and eventually we're going to see the tokenization of real estate. We're going to we're talking big vision, 5 to 20 years down the road, where a lot of these other industries end up going to tokenization. Now, a lot of people might disagree with that, but things are going more digital. So I guess my question for you, Simon, is, I'm not trying to say what your vision is, but I'm just trying to maybe, if you want to talk to the possibility of this being more than Bitcoin, if you feel that way. If you disagree, then speak whatever you think. But I think a lot of the community is having a hard time maybe getting on board because maybe you're selling this as just Bitcoin. But is there a path over the long term, right? Not saying this would happen overnight, but over the long term, is there a possibility to incorporate under the right regulation, the right disclosures, the right risk models, some of these other projects that stand out, like in Ethereum, or maybe 5 years down the road, there's another project that warrants being involved in this big vision you might have?
Yeah, so I think people think I'll be just my bad communication. Collateral with securities. So the using, borrowing money and having collateral is the lending model and the risk model. And I think that you start with Bitcoin and manage the risk around volatility and how you build an excellent operation around risk management. And stable coins that are backed by dollars, so you can pull out the dollars to prevent the lunar situation. And then you could add ETH, but I'm just not sure of what the demand's going to be like for that after the switch to proof of stake. Maybe people do want to lend their ETH and receive yield. I'm just not sure. But if you did those three, you could manage those risks. When you do securities, you disclose a security as you could lose all your money if this goes wrong. And you put people through suitability testing so that they only invest the percentage that they should be investing in that risk profile. And securities, we've been incredibly innovative. We've done, mining with Ethereum. We did the Ethereum ICO. We had SAFT models. We do all sorts of stuff. So we invest in security token companies. You can do securitization. What I'm saying to people is my belief about the future is that you have Bitcoin as digital hard sound money. You probably have Ethereum as a proof of stake, and you have lots of other blockchains. You don't have. I don't think you have utility tokens connected to companies. I think you have securities instead. And we actually invested in a security token exchange, and we're more than happy to move vertical when the timing's right. So what I'm saying is the innovation happens in the security space, and a security, investing in a staking security, means that if that goes wrong, you can lose all your money, and you should only invest a proportionate amount. You don't mix that with a savings account that ends up people having a full sense of what that product is and receiving yield and interest rate on that without it being a security. So that's the bit that I think people get confused, probably because of my bad messaging. You can have all the innovation, but you wrap it in securities. But in the lending model, the initial risk model is how do you manage the risks so that you don't end up with accidentally being under collateralized and repeating the same mistake.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It does, and I just think this is something that, has maybe been misinterpreted, or it's just an important distinction, an important point in my opinion, that because there are a lot of people that hold other assets besides Bitcoin on Celsius that are kind of wondering, okay, well, I get equity in a Nuco or whatever, but they might think the vision is limited just to Bitcoin. They might think limiting the growth and potential of that equity or that long-term vision. So yeah, understanding that there's potential to add other elements to it over time, it would maybe help some people. The last thing I'll want to say, and then I'll shut up and let other people speak, is I'm going to be hosting these sorts of calls moving forward. And for me, the biggest thing is just respect. Talking under a tone of respect. Not that's all it comes down to. You can ask any question you want if it's done in the right way and with a tone of respect. But having calls where we're not respecting each other and just emotionally getting upset, it just doesn't add to the conversation.
Well said.
Yeah, no, I appreciate what you did, because that was about to go in a real nasty direction for no reason. He had some interesting points to discuss, and I couldn't discuss them.
But this is my point, is he might have had some good questions, but he attacked you saying you're not a real investor. And that's just disrespectful. So that's the reason why I removed him, is there's no reason to say those sorts of things on a call. And it's just being, anyways.
With someone saying, "Hey, Simon, is your investing just things you talked about, or is there a way of proving that?" I'm okay with that, but the way it came was not going to go the right way. Okay, cool. I'm going to crash soon, and I think we've done quite long. How long have we done? Has it been over 2 hours? What time does
I'm not even sure. You started probably like, I got on after a while. I think you've been on for 2.5 hours, 3 hours.
Oh shit, too long again. Cool. I'm gonna. Does anyone that's a speaker right now? I'll just take the remaining people, and I'm gonna crash.
Hi, Simon. Happy anniversary.
Thanks a lot, Peggy.
Yep.
Yeah. Just to add context, I'm not that bad a husband. I'm jet lagged, and my wife's already gone to sleep, and we've done the things we were meant to do as part of the anniversary. And I just went into the other room because I can't sleep right now because I just got back from El Salvador.
Sorry.
But yeah, this is what I'm doing on my anniversary.
Can I just say something really quickly?
Sure.
Look, I just want you to know that we all appreciate what you have done in such a difficult time when you lost your father and you left your grieving. And then to help everyone, most of us appreciate that. And yeah, whoever does not appreciate what you are doing, they need to look themselves in the mirror.
Hey, thanks a
Sorry,
lot.
I forgot to say that.
All right, really appreciate that. Thank you. I think my father would have wanted me to do this. You know, at the end of the day, he was a businessman. So cool. All right. Anyone else got any questions before we wrap up?
No questions. I just wanted to say on Thursday, right after the Celsius hearing, I'll be hosting a Twitter Spaces summary recap with hopefully Thomas if he's available, and maybe David and maybe Simon if he's available. So yeah, just kind of going over what might come up during the hearing on Thursday.
Okay, cool. So is that the next big event everyone should know about? Hearing on Thursday.
Yeah, I think it's people can like actually listen in. Somebody definitely worth following if people. I'm assuming most people on this call are already following them, but Aaron Bennett, he has a great YouTube channel, and he's done a really good job of every day or two putting out summary videos of like the most important topics for Celsius. So yeah, definitely follow him on YouTube, and he gives information on like how we can actually join these calls, and so yeah, someone I'd recommend you guys checking out on YouTube. He's listening on the call right now, Aaron Bennett.
Yeah, Aaron does awesome summaries and speaks a lot less than me. Does it in like 5 minutes.
Simon, can I say something?
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to come in here and just say, I know there's a bit of exhaustion, a vigilante exhaustion, because you're looking after something. I think you've seen the criminality behind this business practice. And I think you're trying to reassure a lot of people who have had the bottoms pulled or the rug pulled from under them. And we appreciate you very much for staying on top of this issue. And I really believe that people need to not give up, because it's when we hold those accountable that we are able to forge forward and kind of create a new frontier of accountability. And so this criminality that we're seeing, whoever needs to be held accountable. A lot of these lawyers, they kind of, I've seen them pitter patter and kind of do a curtsy dance around the issue, but a real targets to be set. And I think you need to target those that need to be targeted. I don't think people who put together paper, white or black paper, whatever the goddamn paper they're putting together, can get away with putting a criminal paper together and kind of sweeping it under the people. It was very predatory, and they need to be held accountable. And I think we need to kind of right now just not be a vigilante exhaustion, not to have that exhaustion come in from having to be on the job 24 hours a day, and sort of trying and get that energy to pull forward and not give up. And I don't think we should let them get away. It's a new frontier. There's the electronic frontier. There's a whole new frontier. The government's to be held accountable. They're sending billions and billions and trillions of dollars with one pen signature to wherever they want and whatever project that they want. They can bail this out, and I believe that they're accountable to bailing this out because they had their noses in it and they were smelling this rotting thing happening. They knew this was happening. And even if the people like yourself and others like us were not uber aware, I'm very sure there were others that were in the SEC, because in the SEC, due to the fact that if there's money being made, they have their noses in it. And so to not have come after it and called the red flag, or, threw in the foul flag, this is something that there was a lawyer that you were talking to last time I heard you having these talks, and she was just kind of cursing around the whole situation, like, who can we go after, sort of thing. But there's no reason why we shouldn't go after the SEC. They knew this was going on. They were seeing all these companies operating outside of all these parameters that should not have been happening. And so therefore, definitely, I just want to thank you first and foremost, and then I want to tell you, like, really, whatever if we can find lawyers with enough teeth to dig into and be able to be brave enough to take on this situation, and not to feel like, oh, okay, we signed this white paper, black paper, pink paper, and so that we're delegated to this criminal activity. No, we're not. This is outside of the parameters of any kind of business that has ever been done in the United States. And the reason that it was allowed to go on this long and being able to kind of farm or harvest so much of people's resources indiscriminately. These things have to be, there's regulating bodies that have to be questioned. And I know they came under in the guise of the umbrella of the Bitcoin, this regulated, financial sector that you can decentralized and all this stuff. Oh, that's pretty and nice and everything. But then you come in, you have all these what do you call it, exchanges. And so the minute an exchange comes in, the deregulation and decentralization disappears immediately. And even if it's very the fact that it is convenient, you can push a button and get this done. So the convenience kind of seduced a lot of us into going in there and losing a lot of our money. And a lot of these exchanges disappeared and dematerialized, sort of, it became invisible with billions of dollars. And okay, one time, two times, immediately then you have to put a stop to it. So these exchanges were a lending body operating in this situation, and you are believing in the fact that they're operating under the guise of the laws that govern the United States business community. And this was not what was going on. There was a lot of laundering, extortion, and it has to be, the criminality of it has to be reviewed and targeted. And I'm just thinking that a lot of people are soft liners here. I feel like we don't have to be soft liners. Sometimes it's okay to be hardliner and to, cry Bloody Mary and make sure that we hold the right peoples and properties responsible. But ultimately, I just want to say, Simon, thank you so much for helping this community in the way that you have. I think it's very commendable.
Okay, thank you very much for that comment.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I'm going to jump off now. Did anyone have a burning last question, or should I wrap it up here?
Hi, Simon. Simon, I have a quick question, and you probably already addressed it. And again, I apologize if you already have and didn't mean to waste anyone's time. But I took out loans on Celsius, and I was just trying to get clarification around potentially what could happen there with the loan piece in particular. Just trying to get a sense of whether that's going to be folded into everything along with the network piece, where potentially we're going to get a haircut there, or is it possible that someone could potentially take over and buy out the book of loans, and we can continue to service. So I just wanted to get some perspective as to what's going to happen there.
Yeah, well, firstly, anything can happen, but if I was to put a bet on that, I think those loans are going to be serviced beneath that can service those loans. That's what I think is going to happen. And I think there's plenty of solutions that can be put together. So I think that's going to happen.
Got it. So in your humble opinion, or your best guesstimate today, you would say most likely most loan holders won't lose anything here, and potentially.
Well, are you talking about your collateral?
Yes, exactly. Because I mean, because if there's no collateral, you're not going to keep servicing or paying the interest related to the loan, right? So the question is whether you're gonna, whether we're not going to lose anything on the collateral, and if we have a choice to continue service the loan or potentially paying it off and walk away with your crypto, which would be my preference here. But of course,
I'm hoping a deal can be done to find a new home for those loans. The haircut on the collateral, that's going to be an interesting question. Don't think I know the answer to that yet.
Got it.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna call it a night here. Firstly, apart from one brief moment of destructiveness, I think we managed to carefully put together a very constructive call. So I appreciate this. I think Plan C is going to do some more, and I think we should carry on in this vein. And I think everybody's gaining from this. And I think if someone's just going to come on and swear and be abusive, then we should just boot them out. And if they want to come back again and be more productive, then come back again. But do that again, and the same's going to happen, because it doesn't help. All right. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And this, as on our spaces, to hold everyone to a slightly higher level of account, just be known that these things are recorded, and I'll put them on my YouTube channel as well. So anything you said has been recorded, and you can see that when you come in, whether it's recorded. So we'll put this up on the YouTube channel, and hopefully that holds us all to a standard where we can refer back to these if we ever need to as well. Okay, awesome. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to get some sleep. Bye, y'all.